Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Please, if you can, wrap up your conversation. We're going to get this meeting started here promptly at 6. This is the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be held February 7th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the Recreation Center. First order of business is roll call.
Councilmember DeWillis.
Here.
Councilmember Duvernay.
Here.
Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Karat.
Present.
Councilmember Naren.
Here.
Vice Mayor Weldon is absent, and Mayor Alinsky.
Here. Thank you. Please stand to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next on the agenda is a brief summary of current events by the mayor, city council, and/or city manager. The public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during the summary unless a specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. Council members, do we have anything this evening to report? No? Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, Mayor and Council. The Cottonwood Fire Department has a robust community safety and education program that is continuously providing classes and support for our community. Firefighter Daniel Greneau led a CPR awareness class for approximately 30 residents in Pine Shadows. Officer Daniels shared the importance of early CPR and AED use. We are privileged to have a support of our community with these wonderful programs. Also, the Cottonwood Youth Advisory Commission will host a booth at the County Health Teen Maze event February 28th to March 2nd. All 3 days, the maze will be open from 8 to 2:30. That's a little bit different from the time that was mentioned earlier. The commission will be passing out information regarding issues teens face between being on social media, texting, and online. They will be playing games to show that something sent to one person doesn't always stay with that person. It is shared or posted for all to see. The commission is very excited to be participating in this year's Team Maze. The Parks and Recreation Department is pleased to share that Cottonwood Community Spirit Week is returning next week from February 13th through the 17th. Each day we will be focusing on new ways to celebrate how much we love Cottonwood. More information, visit Cottonwood Parks and Recreation Facebook page. The public is invited to join the City of Cottonwood and the Greater Arizona Chamber of Commerce for the Chamber's February Network Mixer on Thursday, February the 16th at the Cottonwood Community Clubhouse. Mayor Alinsky, our very own, will be speaking to provide a state of the city and discuss topics such as city finances, the strategic plan, general plan, and the status and the search of the search for the new city manager and a city attorney. To register for or more information, please contact cottonwoodchamberaz.org. And the City of Cottonwood administrative offices will be closed on Monday, February the 20th, in observance of President's Day. Full office closures and department update information can be found on the Cottonwood's webpage at cottonwoodaz.gov. At this time, Mayor, I would like to ask Council if they would like to move the call to the public to the end of the meeting, seeing that we have quite a bit of visitors here and we have a very large agenda, and we'd like to get our staff members to take care of city business early on. We will still listen to all the citizens that are here for the call to the public.
Okay, that sounds good. I want to make it clear that, again, there are yellow forms for those of you that just came in. They look like this. If there's an item on the agenda that you'd like to speak to, please fill this out. If you'd like to speak just a call to the public, you're more than welcome to fill this out as well. Again, for those of you who have just arrived, if you're here to speak about the drag show taking place in Old Town, it's not on our agenda, so we cannot discuss it with you this evening. You're more than welcome to speak to the council for or against. If you choose to, you'll need to fill out a form. We're going to place call to the public towards the end of the agenda and get on with our business, and then we'll hear from you afterwards. So let's go ahead and move on to approval of minutes of the work session of January 10, 2023. and the regular meeting of January 17th, 2023. I'll motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
All right, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, they're approved. And unfinished business, there's two items this evening. First up is ordinance number 728, amending the zoning ordinance by amending sections 402, locations and boundaries of districts, 404, general provisions, 406, parking and loading requirements, and 427, Old Town Special Planning Area. This is the second and final reading. I don't think anything's new or changed from this.
Mayor and Council, we have not had any additional comments since the first reading on either of those two items.
All right, council, is there any further discussion on this? No? Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 728.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Nairn made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember DeWillis,
Yes.
Councilmember Duvernay,
Yes.
Councilmember Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Karat,
Yes.
Councilmember Naren,
Yes.
and Mayor Linsky,
Yes.
and the ordinance passed.
Great. Will you please read ordinance number 728 by title only?
An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the zoning ordinance by amending sections 402, locations and boundaries of districts, 404, general provisions, 406, parking and loading requirements, and 427, Old Town Special Planning Area.
Thank you. And then next, under unfinished business, ordinance number 729, rezoning an approximately 2.4-acre parcel of land located at 1798 East First Street from R1 single-family residential to R2 single-family multifamily residential. Again, second and final reading.
Again, Mayor and Council, there's been no additional comments on this item.
All right, anything from council on this? Okay. I'll go ahead and motion to approve ordinance number 729.
Second.
All right, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Karat seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember DeWillis,
Yes.
Councilmember Duvernay,
Yes.
Councilmember Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Karat,
Yes.
Councilmember Naren,
Yes.
and Mayor Linsky. Thank you.
All right, please read ordinance number 729 by title only.
An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the zoning map of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona for a parcel of land, APN 406-04053M, so as to change certain district boundaries and classifications therefrom from the present zoning designation of R1, single-family residential, to R2, single-family multifamily.
Great, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda. There's 5 items this evening under consent. First up is special event and use permit applications for the town of Clarkdale, Arizona State Parks and National Park Service for the city's 2023 Vintage Run. Item 2, award of contract for pavement marking services to Arizona Lines, LLC. Item 3 is cooperative use of the City of Tucson's contract with Caterpillar, Inc. to purchase a new Caterpillar telehandler lift for the Public Works Department. Item 4, new liquor license application, 012 restaurant for Delia E. Enriquez, applicant for I Chihuahua Mexican food restaurant located at 1028 North Main Street, Suite B. Item 5 is a national opioid litigation settlement proceed distribution and authorization to participate in new settlements. Is there an item that a council member or citizen would like to have pulled? All right, I'll motion then to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
All right, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Karat seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's approved. And then we roll into new business. The following items are for council discussion, consideration, and possible legal action. First up, we have interview of applicants for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Amanda Wilbur, HR Director. This evening, we are here to interview planning and zoning applicants. We currently have one seat available for a 3-year term. We advertised this position. We received 3 applications. I was notified this afternoon that the third person dropped dropped out, so we actually have 2 applicants tonight to interview with you. All 7 members of the Planning and Zoning Commission must be city residents, and at least 2 of the members must have a design-related background. We currently have at least 2 members with a design-related background, so both candidates tonight fit the requirements of the open seat. So with that, we have Michael Duvernay and George Gaylor here to interview with you this evening. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and, I'm sure Ms. Wilbur said it, but there's 2 processes. There's the blind review process, then there's our process this evening. We're going to combine those tallies and make a decision at a future council meeting. So this evening, we're just going to be interviewing the 2 applicants. So, Mr. Duvernay, are you with us this evening? Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you for your application.
You're welcome.
We have just 3 questions here for you this evening, so I'm going to go ahead and take it from the top. Number 1, why do you want to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Well, we're a new family in Cottonwood. We've been here approximately 3 years, and we'd like to contribute something to the city. And I thought being on the planning committee may be something that would fit my capabilities. Former member of a planning and zoning committee in my hometown in Michigan.
Okay. And the second question, sir, is what specific development experience do you have that qualifies you to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Well, in my past service with the city in Michigan, we did a new rec park. We did, all the normal zoning and stuff for construction zones and for commercial buildings, residential applications for licensing and whatnot.
Okay. And what do you hope to accomplish as a Planning and Zoning Commissioner?
Just to contribute to the city, try to control and understand what's going on, and to look at the expansion of the city. I know there's a lot of growth happening, and I would like to be involved in the planning of that growth and bring some balance to it as far as recreational and that of the needs of the residents and the people that live here.
Great. All right, Council, any specific questions about his resume or anything? No? All right, short and sweet. Thank you, Mr. Duvernay.
All
I
right,
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and up next, we have Mr. Gaylor. George Gaylor, are you here this evening? Good evening, sir.
Hi there, Mayor and Council. Good to see you. Thanks for the opportunity this evening.
Thank you for your application. Same 3 questions, sir, so your last name just falls after Duvernay, which is why you're second. Yeah. So first up is, why do you want to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Well, I've been living in the area for about 35 years, specifically the Cottonwood vicinity for 25. I'm from the area. I've lived and worked here, I guess, about 30, 35 years, and I'm heavily vested. I've been twice involved in the general plan process, and I guess that's on your horizon currently. I would like to be part of that once again.
All right, and then what specific development experience do you have that qualifies you to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I have a degree in city planning, worked 30 years in the planning profession, 4 different jurisdictions, 3 different levels of government, including federal, county, city. I worked for the city of Cottonwood for 16 years, as well as for city of Glendale, Yavapai County, doing community planning for 8 years, and AICP.
What was the last?
AICP, I'm certified planning
Okay.
professional. I currently work for a private consultant down in Phoenix on a part-time basis. I'm kind of semi-retired at this point.
Okay, great. All right, and last, what do you hope to accomplish as a Planning and Zoning Commissioner?
Again, I'd like to be part of the general plan process for I guess this will be the 3rd time. I managed the process in 2003 and again in 2013, and would like to be part of it again. I've got some specific concerns for traffic safety, pedestrian development in the community, and for the housing issue.
Okay, Council, any other questions specific to Mr. Gaylor? No? All right. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for inviting me to the party.
Thank you. Don't leave. All right. All right, so that's that. Like I said earlier, we're going to combine this score with the blind matrix score, and we'll bring it back at a future council meeting to make our decision. But thank you to both of the applicants for applying. And if you don't get it this time, we have frequent openings on all city commissions, so if you don't get it again, please consider applying again. We need all the help that we can get on our commissions. All right. Next, under unfinished business, we have item 2. It's ordinance number 727, amending the zoning for approximately 11.6 acres of land located at 1432 South Silverado Drive, Yavapai County Assessor's Parcel Number 406-12-042E from C2 Heavy Commercial with stipulations to PAD Planned Area Development. This is the first reading. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Gary Davis with Community Development, City of Cottonwood. This is a request for a rezoning from C2 to PAD. As you may know, a rezone application or a zone change application has to be in conformance with the general plan policy, which is not the case here. So the applicant has to also apply for a general plan amendment to change the general plan designation on the map in the general plan. That particular issue apparently we can't advance these yet. We'll do it the old-fashioned way here. And just a scheduling note here for the general plan amendment. Public hearing on that will be 2 weeks from now, February 21st. And for the zoning change, that would be first reading tonight, public hearing, and then the second reading and public hearing again on the 21st. This is a little different sequence from what we usually do. The reason for this is that our department was a little late in getting notices out for the 15-day advance notice to residents within 300 feet. So we wanted to make sure that the public hearings took place at a time where people got their 15 days notice. So that places them both on the 21st, and that gives the ability to take a vote on both of those, both the resolution, which is the general plan amendment, and the zone change. The zone change requires a first reading and second reading, so that requires 2 meetings, but the general plan amendment only requires the one. The resolution only requires the one. So hopefully that's clear. Tonight we'll be talking exclusively about the zone change. We can discuss both at the February 21st meeting. A few details on the project. Size is about 11.6 acres. The general plan land use map, which I said would need to get amended, right now calls for general commercial uses. Next meeting, we would talk about the amendment to go to PLD, planned development. Zone change tonight would be from C2 heavy commercial zone to planned area development, PAD. PAD zone is a zone that is specific to a master development plan. Somebody applying for a PAD zone has to submit a master development plan describing the proposal that would be built on the property. If a PAD project is approved and the developer wants to make a substantial change to that master development plan, it would have to go back through the public hearing process again. It is specific to what's being shown on the master development plan. Back in 2005, there was a zone change to C2 from the original residential zone that was in effect at the time that this property was annexed in about 2002. The original county single-family zoning was in effect. In 2005, there was a rezone to C2. At that time, the city added 24 stipulations to that rezone, including a height limit, which placed the maximum height of all buildings at the 3,386-foot contour level. Keep that number in mind. We'll get back to that later. The PAD zone, in this case, if it was approved, would replace the C2 zone and would replace the current stipulations, including that height limit. This is the general plan land use map, which we'll be discussing next time, but this shows that the site is currently designated for general commercial. The zone change, again, the center of the picture here, the crosshatched area. This property is zone C2. Properties to the east are also zone C2. Walmart is that big white roof you see directly to the east across Silverado Drive. Mingus Union High School in the CF Community Facility Zone is directly to the north. To the west and to the south is unincorporated Yavapai County, single-family residential. There are a number of houses, I believe 6 houses, bordering the property on the west and about 3 bordering the property on the south. They are accessed from cul-de-sac streets, Destry Lane, and Gray Bar Drive. And this is what would be considered an infill project because this site is the last large site available for development in this area. It's all developed surrounding it with the exception of a couple of single-family lots along Rio Mesa Trail to the south. This would be the last major development in this area. It's accessed by Rodeo Drive and Silverado Drive. Rodeo Drive is designated as a collector street up until its entrance with Walmart. After that, Rodeo Drive and Silverado are considered minor collectors. Silverado connects into the south in the county area with Rio Mesa Trail, which is also a neighborhood collector street. A few details on the project. Proposal is in this master development plan that was presented by the applicant. 152 multifamily units. This is a density of about 13 per acre. Just to give you a little comparison, our R2 zone, which is basically our duplex zone, allows densities as high as 11 units per acre. Our R3 zone, which is our multifamily zone, allows densities up to 29 units per acre. Proposed here is 38 two-story, 25-foot buildings, 4 townhome-style apartments, 2-story apartment townhome-style units would be in each of the 38 buildings, adding up to 152. There would be a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units throughout the development. In addition to the residential buildings, there would be a clubhouse and maintenance buildings. The applicant has estimated that there would be about 42% open space on this property. The requirement in the PAD zone is 30%. 297 parking spaces are shown, which also meets our requirements for parking. The applicant's traffic study that they had done estimated a little over 1,000 daily trips, which translates to about 70 morning peak hour trips. So in 1 hour in the morning, they would anticipate 17 trips in, 53 out. And the afternoon peak hour would be 86 trips total, 54 in and 32 out. It's anticipated that the majority of these trips would use Rodeo to go to the traffic signal at 260, though some may go south on Silverado to get to Rio Mesa as well. But the traffic light being at 260 in Rodeo, we imagine that most of the traffic would go there. Water and sewer is available at the site, and that's a feature of infill development. There's no expense needed to run water and sewer utilities or new streets to the site. They are already there. They're already available. And the project is on a transit route. There's a transit route that runs around Walmart, and there is a stop near the Walmart entrance, a few hundred feet away from the entrance to this project. This is the site plan that was presented with the master development plan. This was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It shows two driveway locations onto Silverado Drive, one at the Rodeo Drive intersection and one a little to the south. It also shows in the yellow some pedestrian connections between the project and connecting it to the street network, so people can access the sidewalks. Our Public Works Department is going to require the construction of a sidewalk as well as a crosswalk along Silverado Drive as well between the two driveways. So that is and there is also a stipulation in our recommendations here that requires dedication of a trail easement, which would connect with the Mingus Union High School property. We've been talking with Mingus Union High School about possibly putting a trail connection along the south edge of the high school property to connect with Camino Real to the west to provide a neighborhood connection, pedestrian connection, all the way from the Fur Street and Camino Real area all the way down to the Walmart area, which we hope will be a nice connection one of these days. This site plan was submitted by the applicant last month. It's the same as the previous site plan that was presented, except it does three things. It adjusts the boundary measurements, dimensions, to reflect the legal description, which resolves the legal description problem we had in advance of the January meeting. It also shows the required sidewalk along Silverado Drive that's being required. And it also shows in the circled area there, they're showing an additional detention pond above ground, which is in addition to the 3 detention ponds that were already proposed. Detention is required by our engineering department so that the amount of runoff leaving the site during a 100-year flood event, storm event, is not more than the amount of runoff running off the property in the pre-development state. In other words, development would not cause an increase of the amount of runoff off of the site. And runoff would go into the Cherry Hills Wash, which starts up in the National Forest to the west, runs through the developed county area, enters the city at this property, and currently on this property that was culverted. There is a culvert structure that contains that wash in that dark blue line. It leaves the property, goes to the east following Rodeo Drive, crosses 260, and dead ends into the Cottonwood ditch. There is another wash to the south of here off of the picture. It's known as Rio Mesa Wash. It follows Rio Mesa Drive, which you saw on the earlier slide. It goes along the Rio Mesa Trail Road south of the Walmart parking lot, crosses 260, and also its channel ends at the Cottonwood ditch area. Our understanding is that all of the runoff, which would be running off after being detained on the property, would go into the Cherry Hills Wash. None of the water from this property would go into the Rio Mesa Wash. That's a different watershed. The phasing plan starts in the north, 3 phases, north, middle, and finally on the south. Applicant has provided a landscaping plan showing drought-tolerant materials around the perimeter of the property as well as along the sidewalks in front of the units. one of our stipulations that we'll read later on requires that the perimeter landscaping be done as a part of Phase 1. So it all gets done first. We don't have to wait around for Phase 2 and 3 to get done before the landscaping gets put in on those around the perimeter. This is an elevation drawing that was submitted by the applicant showing in general the style of architecture that's proposed here. Again, these are a series of buildings that each contain 4 townhome units, 2-story units, some 1, some 2, some 3 bedrooms in those units. And again, it shows the landscaping proposed in the front of those. So the zoning would need to consider the general plan policies, and these are some policies that are pertinent to this particular project. In Chapter 3, Land Use, in the general plan, the introduction says that the land use element encourages infill development, and compact development can reduce the amount of infrastructure needed to support growth and allow residents to walk and bike to nearby services and facilities. And again, that's what I mentioned earlier when I mentioned that that sewer and water and roads are already available to the site. Nothing needs to be extended for this type of infill development. The key issues would be that, again, encouraging infill development, encouraging efficient compact development patterns, providing opportunities for walkable mixed-use neighborhoods based on desirable design qualities and amenities. Now, this type of development, a apartment development next to a Walmart, that might not be everybody's idea of a walkable mixed-use neighborhood, but it is a neighborhood that would be installed next to a major retailer and a major employer in the area. So walkability is an issue here too. Discussing the Area 9 commercial core, which is an area that includes the South 260 corridor. It says consider additional multi-unit residential opportunities in a nearby area, set back from the highway frontage, and provide improved pedestrian links between the commercial and residential areas. This is an area that's been zoned C2 for quite a while, but it's set back almost a quarter of a mile from Highway 260, so this would fall under this category. Objective 3.1b is to encourage mixed-use development with focused compact centers comprised of residential, retail, office, entertainment, and recreational use in order to provide, again, walkable neighborhoods. Objective 3.1e, support development that provides for a variety of residential types and styles. And 3.1a, protect existing neighborhoods from incompatible land uses. Now, this is kind of a subjective issue. You can argue whether multifamily is more compatible or less compatible to the single-family neighborhood nearby than the proposed heavy, or than the heavy commercial uses that are currently permitted on the property. But one of the other features of infill development is, by definition, there's already development surrounding this property, including often residential development, and it may have impacts on those existing houses. So let's talk about that for a minute. This is an aerial view provided by the applicant showing a 3D rendering of the mass of the buildings in relation to the surrounding uses. You see Walmart up to the right. You see the ball fields with Mingus Union to the north. To the west is the single-family residential neighborhoods. You see the houses, 6 houses along the west side. Zoom in a little bit and you can see how the proposed units back up to the residential areas. And the applicant provided a section drawing which shows the relation of the new apartment buildings on the right with the existing houses on the left. These are a couple of examples of the elevations of those houses. Remember that stipulation on the existing C2 zone that the that the building height would be limited to the 3,386-foot level. That's shown with the red line here. So you can see that these would exceed that 3,386 by quite a bit with the two-story buildings. Again, if the PAD is approved, the C2 zoning is replaced and the stipulations are no longer in place as well. This is a rendering prepared by the applicant from houses on the Destry Lane side to the south. It's a little higher, and you can kind of see over the buildings. On the Gray Bar Drive side to the west, this would be the view from backyards from those 6 houses, looking towards the east. And this is a view currently from one of those houses looking to the east. Looking from the south side of the property, looking back exactly the opposite way towards those houses on the west. This is what the site currently looks like. This shows the entrance, the main entrance to the site. This is the corner of Rodeo and Silverado. This is where the first northern driveway would be, going straight into the site. This is going around the corner a little bit, looking west. This shows Silverado Drive, where you see on the left side of the street, there's already a sidewalk there. The applicant would add a sidewalk, would be required to add a sidewalk on the other side as well. And that's about that speed limit sign is where that detention pond would be added. And this is the same intersection looking north this time. You can see the fences for Mingus Union up on the hill to the north. The property here would be to the west, and this would be about where that trail easement would go straight north up into the Mingus Union High School property. These are stipulations that were presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission back in November. I will read these into the record because if the first reading takes place tonight, these would be a part of the zoning ordinance, zone change ordinance that would be receiving its first reading. So, first stipulation, the development shall be consistent with the master development plan reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission dated October 20th, 2022, including revisions to colors and materials submitted November 16th, 2022. Number 2, the development shall be consistent with the code review comments dated August 4th, 2021, where applicable and not superseded by master development plan, and shall comply with the letter from the airport manager dated November 22nd, 2022. As I look at that, I'm thinking that August 4th, 2021 date might be a typo. That might be 2022. We'll confirm that. Number 3, building permit applications for at least the first phase of the building shall be submitted to the city no later than 24 months from the date of the zone change ordinance adoption. If the stipulation is not met, the city may take action to revert the site to its previous C2 zoning or extend the time by which building permit applications must be submitted. If building designs differ significantly from those shown in the master development plan, additional design review approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission shall be required. Number 4, the developer shall install solid fencing 6 feet in height to enclose first floor rear yards along the south and west lot lines, and shall coordinate with adjacent residents on the selection and quantity of landscape materials in the required 10-foot landscape buffer. Number 5, developer shall construct a sidewalk 6 feet in width along the existing curb on the west side of Silverado Drive between the 2 driveways, and the driveway entrances shall conform to the City of Cottonwood Standard Detail 1250-2 or an alternative approved by the City of Cottonwood Public Works. The developer shall install 1 crosswalk at the intersection of Rodeo Drive and Silverado Drive with the sidewalk curb ramps built per City of Cottonwood requirements. The sidewalk, driveway entrances, and crosswalks shall be shown on site plans accompanying building permit applications. Number 6, The developer shall dedicate a public pedestrian easement for a trail near the intersection of Rodeo Drive and Silverado Drive as shown on the site plan prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy. Number 7, bicycle parking shall be shown on building permit site plans and installed per zoning ordinance section 406H prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Number 8, perimeter landscaping per zoning ordinance section 407 and sidewalk crosswalk improvements shall be included in building permit plans for phase 1 and shall be installed prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy for that phase. Number 9, we're almost done. Detention systems shall be inspected annually by a licensed engineer hired by the owner and shall be maintained as necessary, and an annual inspection report shall be submitted to the City Public Works Department. Those are the 9 stipulations that were considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. In light of the new site plan showing the above-ground detention area being added by the applicant or being offered by the applicant, if the council wants to make that a requirement as well, then the reading of the ordinance could add a stipulation 10. We're suggesting the wording, in addition to underground detention systems shown on the site, the developer shall build an open detention area with a volume of no less than 11,800 cubic feet, subject to approval by the City Public Works Department. The applicant held the neighborhood meeting on September 12th. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on November 28th. They did not recommend approval of the zone change. A motion to approve was defeated 2-4. There were a number of residents who spoke against the project at that meeting. Council has, I understand, received a number of comments directly on this proposal. The Mingus Union High School District has been aware of this project, and we have been in communication with the district as well as the applicant. And so far, they've expressed no concerns over this project, at least not to us. Yavapai County Development Services has reviewed these plans and has no comments or concerns. That concludes staff's presentation. Happy to answer questions on the process here, but I know the applicant is here, and I assume the applicant is back there somewhere and can answer your questions that are specific to the proposal.
Good, thank you, Mr. Davis. Do we have any questions, council, for staff at this time? Go right ahead.
On the, you said it was 42% open space. What are they counting as that open space?
Excuse me?
On the,
Didn't quite catch all that.
hang on, I think I got it now. On the 42% open space, what areas are they counting as open space? Because it was kind of congested on the picture.
Right. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Karat, the definition of open space in our ordinance is pretty broad. It's essentially anything that isn't building or pavement, anything that's open for use by people, that's not concrete, some things that generally contribute to a natural setting. For instance, if that detention pond that's being proposed, if that was supposed to be a concrete structure that was fenced off, that would not count as open space. But if it's a landscaped area, just a low spot in the ground, then it would count as open space.
Okay, so to be clear, none of the parking spaces are counted as open space in this?
No,
okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Go right ahead.
What is the height difference between the two? Are there any one-story at all?
I don't believe there are any one-story units proposed in this project right now. That might be something to ask the applicant, but that's not part of the site plan that we've seen.
All right. Anything else, council? All right, well, the applicants are here, so if you wouldn't mind coming up and introducing yourself, we'd appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Good
Good evening.
evening. My name is Charity Lee. I'm with Miramonte Homes.
I'm Chris Kimmerly with Miramonte.
I have prepared a statement. Oh, I'm sorry, Art, I didn't see you.
Art Beck with Shepherd Westminster.
We have prepared a statement about how we have designed the project and gone above and beyond, and we'd like to share that if that's okay.
Of course.
The Silverado Lofts is an exciting project. It brings 152 rental units, to address the housing need in Cottonwood. And Council, I know you're aware of this need. I'm sure you've heard about the need many times over the last few years. According to the Housing Need Assessment dated May 10th, 2021, it identified a housing shortage of over 2,700 units in the Verde Valley. And within the next 5 years, the assessment states that this will only increase to over 3,700 units. To address this need, the assessment states you would need over 189 units per year to meet the current and future demands. We're here today to present a project that would help you address those needs. The Silverado Lofts project proposes a development on over 11.5 acres. This is an underutilized vacant infill lot behind Walmart. The site is behind existing C2 commercial zoning. The project as proposed meets the general plan goals and objectives and aligns with recommendation number 2 of the general plan, which states, consider additional multi-unit residential opportunities in nearby areas set back from the highway frontage and provide improved pedestrian links between commercial and residential areas. This multi-family development provides the link between commercial and single-family residential and provides a better transition between the two uses than if the site was developed under the C2 zoning as heavy commercial. We are proposing to build 38 fourplex buildings and a clubhouse. These units will have a bedroom on the main level and a loft upstairs. There will be a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Each unit will have a covered front patio looking out onto the tree-lined street, providing a sense of place for the residents to meet and get to know one another, and a fenced-in backyard. These units will be sustainable. They will be all electric and Energy Star certified. Our units will be 42% more energy efficient than a standard home. The site will be landscaped with native and adaptive plants and will be installed within the development and along the property boundaries to provide a buffer. Our development meets and exceeds the development requirements of the plan area development. Our building height is 25 feet, which is 10 feet less than the requirement of 35 feet. The west rear setback is 29 feet, and the rear south setback is 73 feet, which exceeds the 15-foot rear setback requirement. 42% of the site is preserved as open space, which exceeds the requirement of the PAD. On September 12, 2022, we held a neighborhood meeting. At the meeting, we heard concerns about the height of the buildings on the west property line and the need for a secondary ingress-egress. In response to the neighbors' concerns, we lowered the buildings approximately 6 feet along the west line and are cutting the site down in 20 feet. We're cutting it down 20 feet in places. This is a change in cut from over 43,000 cubic yards to now 120,000 cubic yards from our original site plan. As a result of this change, the development will require over 10,000 truckloads to remove all the excess material. This change allows for the secondary ingress-egress. We are unable to reduce the grade any further because of the drainage and the floodplain at the northwest corner of the site. We have also added an additional detention to address the stormwater concerns we heard at the P&Z meeting on November 28th. We voluntarily added an additional 11,820 cubic feet of storage, surface storage, to the project in the form of a detention pond. The site plan now has 3 underground detention basins with volume up to 69,400 cubic feet. This is over 21% over the required 57,000 cubic feet of volume that was to be detained on site. The required storage volume of stormwater runoff from the development was determined based on retaining the storm runoff volume for the entire 100-year, 2-hour storm event from all added impervious areas of the project site, per the Yavapai County Drainage Manual. The water will discharge into the Cherry Hills Wash, not the Rio Mesa Wash. Per the requirements of the Cottonwood Engineering Design Standards, the detention basins will have an outlet structure to meter the stormwater runoff to the pre-development runoff rate. The basin outlets will discharge and empty the stormwater into Cherry Hills Wash, as has historically happened for the site. We plan to start construction in the second or third quarter of 2023 after final plans and permits have been received. Thank you so much for your support of the Silverado Lofts project. We are available for any additional questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Council, do we have any questions for the applicant? No. Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Kimberly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and City Council, I've been at this 40 years. This has been one of the more difficult projects I've ever had to do as far as, getting approvals. And I think I just want to remind Mayor and City Council, because of the height restriction that affected those 6 houses, which absolutely was in place, I asked for a meeting with the Mayor and City Council and the P&Z in March of 2022. We had the meeting here. We went over this because, frankly, I didn't want to actually spend the time, the money, and have issues. I wanted to make sure that this project, with that height restriction, knowing there's no way we could meet it, would be approved. And at that meeting, we had a unanimous approval, both by P&Z and the Mayor and City Council. So you can see my surprise when we went to P&Z and it wasn't approved. Because if y'all said you don't want it, I'm out of here. We're out of here. I'm too old to be doing stuff I don't need to be doing. So we went with the unanimous approval of both Mayor and City Council and P&Z, we went forward. We have taken this site, as Charity said, down in a range from 6 feet to 20 feet to do the most we could do. Now, I'm not going to get into money because nobody cares, what it costs us. But 10,000 trucks? That's the volume of material we're taking off that site to lower the grade. That is no small gesture. We're trying to do everything we can to placate those 6 neighbors. There was a question about a second entrance that actually one of the firemen, not officially but unofficially, talked about. We listened. We put the second entrance in. Then we got in this crossfire with this drainage issue and the flooding. Our original plan, we were perfectly per code. We were not putting in excess water on the 100-year flood. But on top of it, we have now put in another detention pond which exceeds the requirement by 21%. We can't do anything else. I think it's time y'all figure out, do you want infill development? Do you want workforce housing or not? Because we can't do any more. And it would be a shame because we've worked real hard on this. And I don't know what else we can do. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions again? Go ahead. Did you have a question? Yeah.
So you're saying workforce housing, is that going to be affordable? Will it be affordable?
Well, let's be clear. Affordable anymore means nothing. So
It's relative.
It really has no definition. It's like quality. What does quality mean? I will tell you, every time we add things like 10,000 trucks, that adds to our cost, And we have, we're business people. We have factored that in. We have factored in the rental rates in Cottonwood. We cannot come into Cottonwood and charge a big premium, or guess what? We'll have a failed project. And also, guess what? I personally guarantee the loans. So I'm not going to do that. This is about I think it's pushing about a $40 million project. So like I said, I'm an old man. I've been doing this a long time. I am not going to personally guarantee something that's going to fail. So we are going to meet the rental rates in town. No, there's some 50-year-old apartments. We're not going to be down where they are. And this is a different product. We build this all over Arizona. We build it in Montana. It's a townhome. It's a loft townhome. People walk in the front door. They have the master bedroom down, the kitchen, the living room on the first floor. Upstairs, they have a loft, which can be a flex room, an office, a kid's room, a TV room. And then we have, in the case of a one-bedroom, no bedrooms upstairs. In the case of a two-bedroom, one bedroom with a bath upstairs. In the case of a three-bedroom, we have three bedrooms upstairs. So people have really liked this in every market we've built it in because it's completely different from your traditional three-story walk-up garden-style apartment. They walk in, it's their house, it's their home. The only time they have to interact, if they don't want to interact with people, is when they walk from the parking lot to their front door.
Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Not at this time. All right. All right, well, this is a public hearing, so I think what we're going to do at this point is open it up for the public to address the council on this item. And if there's any other questions from council after the public speaks to us, then we can get the applicant back over, our own staff back over to answer those questions. So here's how this is going to work. Again, for those who have just arrived, there's yellow forms. I think some of our city staff is walking around with them. There may be some over on a table over here. You need to fill out a form if you'd like to address council on this item. I'm going to call you up one by one, and I'm going to queue up the next person so we can get through this somewhat efficiently, because there are a lot of us here this evening to speak on this item. You'll be limited to 3 minutes. If you have any questions, please just state your question, and we're going to make sure we take a note of that, and we'll get your question answered at the end. Please direct your questions to council, which means don't turn around and ask the applicant the question directly. Please ask us. Again, we'll take a note, get that question answered for you at the end of public comment. You can get up to speak once, so make those 3 minutes count. If somebody else has already spoken about an item that you had the same question, maybe out of respect for the other folks that are in the room tonight, maybe just stay seated. And if that question's already been asked, we'll get an answer for you. So without further ado, I am going to call up Mr. Mangini, please, to the podium. And then following Mr. Mangini, we're going to have Kelly Moffitt in the queue. And Mr. Mangini, again, thanks for being here. You're limited to 3 minutes. You'll hear an annoying little beep at the end of the 3 minutes, and I'll try to wave at you too if you keep on keeping on, okay? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mike Mangini, P.O. Box 265, Cottonwood, Arizona. I grew up just below the hill from this. My entire life was there until I went to Flagstaff. And on the community plan, the city of Cottonwood is rooted in a rich history, committed to time-honored values, and dedicated to an evolving and sustainable future. And I bring that up because that is part of the community plan of the city of Cottonwood. And when you go through the detail, where do you put a multifamily project? You put it next door to your retail. And the largest retail in Cottonwood is that Super Walmart store. So as far as where this should go and why it should go there is definitely that location. The issues that I've heard came up in the last hearing dealing with causing flooding down in the floodplain area that's below the old UVX farm is a disingenuous argument. This is not a popularity contest that you're asked to hear. You're asked to make rational decisions based upon ordinances you have about your community plan. The flooding down there is right near where I grew up as a child. It's right near where my brother and I would get a tractor and a trailer and pick boulders out of the Bobin field. That's where the floodwaters ran. And we'd pick all the boulders out. When they were too big that we couldn't pick them up, we'd get a scoop tractor to pick them up and relocate them. So to get upset because water from the mountains is going down into the floodplain and causing the flooding, the answer is that's disingenuous. That's always happened before there was even a house up north of this country. They have regulations to deal with detention of water. They're complying with it. I talked to them about adding some more detention basins, and they said, we'll add some more detention basins. Absent not dealing with housing issues that the city of Cottonwood has, this project should be approved as submitted, and I don't think it's a popularity contest. And any questions about my childhood growing up down there, but this was just area we hunted rabbits.
Okay.
And there wasn't a single structure that sheeted any water up in this entire area. And it still would flood and leave boulders in Mr. Bobin's field, and my brother and I would always go out there and pick them up.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, next we have Kelly Moffitt, and queued up behind Kelly Moffitt, we'll ask Edward Schill to come up. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. All due respect to Mr. Mongini's remarks, I'm opposed to this project not because of a popularity contest, but because of the impact that I and my neighbors have had, an increasing negative impact from stormwater runoff. We have lived in our home down off of the UVX Road area for over 20 years, and precedes Walmart and the car dealerships coming in, and with every new development, paved surfaces, rooftops, the stormwater runoff impact has just grown incredibly to the point where the 100-year flood to us means annual flood, because we get stormwater runoff every summer now during the monsoon season. It doesn't even require much of a storm, and we're just getting water like we've never had before. In fact, now the runoff that we're getting is not just water. We're getting pollutants are obviously in this water. You know, as it filters through, you got the rainbow swirls on top of the water, which is petroleum. And so it's like pressure washing all that pavement up there, the parking lots, the roads. This apartment complex, I see more rooftops, I see more pavement. And they're putting water in the Cottonwood ditch, that you said in the prior presentation. The Cottonwood ditch is already overflowing. With every year, we see overflowing, and that's just doing property damage and we're not in the flood zone, I should add too. We don't live in a flood zone there. We are outside the flood zone, but the impact we're getting is from stormwater runoff that's not being properly managed. And so I call upon this group to not accept this, even though the developer apparently has put forward some voluntary additions to the project with a retention basin there on the plan now. There's no teeth behind the enforcement of keeping that up. In fact, that's one of our problems, is that when the original development goes in, the commercial properties do meet the standard, but there is no ongoing standard for inspections and upkeep, and these systems are not being maintained properly. Walmart, for one, puts out a lot of water every time it rains. And those giant culverts that face Highway 260 are just flowing with even a medium level of storm and during the monsoon season. So we're being inundated. It's not just water flooding a field. We're talking damage. And I've got a retaining wall that needs to be rebuilt, and it just shouldn't be happening the way that it is. We're getting far too much water, far too much velocity, and it's all stormwater runoff. I'm also concerned about the petroleum-based pollutants that are coming in. They're not just impacting our properties, but it's going straight to the Verde River. And the Verde River does not, I have a background in natural resource management. I do not like local resource being impacted like this. And it's like pressure washing all that pavement and putting the pollutants on the properties and right into the Verde River. So that's not good for our local environment at all. The runoff and the destruction has become the norm. It's no longer just the exception.
Mr. Moffitt, I'm so sorry, but you're out of time. You're done, sir. It goes by quick, doesn't it?
It did.
Thank you for
Okay,
being here.
I think you got my point.
We did, yes,
Thanks
thank you,
for
sir.
listening.
All right. Mr. Schill, then we'll have Darrell Yoakum behind you. Good evening, sir.
Evening, Edward Schill, 1440 Bates Road. I do believe that with every project that goes in, it does add water. I commend them for expanding putting in that retention pond and opening to those ideas. But what we're worried about is the water that goes off of the property. And it seems like with every permit or every building permit that it just adds more, and we're getting a recipient of it. He said that, you know, the water goes into the Cottonwood ditch. Well, that's not a storm drain system, that's an irrigation system. And thank goodness that somebody would let the water out, or it's a major flood to us. And it already is a major flood, and I just ask that you guys get with the county or something and get a plan on where this water is going, because it's coming at us, and it's getting more and more over the years. And I'm sure they're good people, and it looks like a good project, but we just can't handle any more water. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Daryl Yoakum, and then queued up next will be Claire Rasmussen.
I'm Daryl Yoakum, live at 1360 Bates Road. We've been there since '94. And like he said, the waters are getting more and more. I want to read something to you guys. City of Cottonwood provides protection, or protects, nurtures, and cares for its community of residents, businesses, visitors, supporters. We create and sustain the best quality of life for people that are the fabric of our entire community. Okay? Now, these guys said they are building a retention pond. I did a little bit of math. An Olympic-sized swimming pool holds 80,000 cubic feet of water. 11,000 cubic feet of water is about a tenth of an Olympic-sized swimming pool. You two have seen the videos. You know how much water comes through those properties, okay? So all that to say that the zoning, I think, should stay the same. It's not fair to these people who have built homes and lived there for years and years to never see a sunset again on the west side of their property, all right? And nothing has been done since the last meeting to address the stormwater runoff. And that runoff comes from Old Town Cottonwood, everything in between, all the way down to Cayuga Road in the Verde Villages. That's where the ditch stops. It's not your ditch. It belongs to the shareholders of the ditch. Okay? There's been no action on that, and nothing, there's been no action from past projects. It's just we get blank looks, and now we're building another thing. Don't have any guarantees that this is gonna help in any way, shape, or form. So I urge you guys to partner with the county or the feds, stop letting that water go into the ditch, get some real plans that are gonna actually address something. And I think that any kind of building should be halted until some kind of plans and real solutions are physically put into place. No plans, no papers. I want some dirt moved. I want something to be happening to keep this from happening over and over and over again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right, Claire. One other thing I didn't mention was if we could all hold our applause, I'd appreciate it very much. So we can try to get through this as efficiently as possible. So, Claire Rasmussen, and I apologize if I'm not getting your name correct.
No, you got it right. I'm Claire Rasmussen. I live at 1445 South Graybar, one of the perimeter residences. And as you already heard, originally this was residential property, and then Larry Green went forth to try to get it changed to heavy commercial. And as you can imagine, all of us that lived along the perimeters went nuts. But in 2005, we had a bunch of meetings with Larry Green and with the city, and we got that stipulation, that Ordinance 463 passed, that had a setback and a set down in height so that it wouldn't ruin our property values or our quality of life. And in many ways, this new development is worse than heavy commercial because those buildings are going to be 25 feet tall, and they're going to be right up against our property line, so we will not see a sunrise ever again. And we will not have any dark nights ever again because of the amount of lighting required to illuminate that campus. So I would just urge you, you know, it doesn't, that development doesn't belong there, but if you are intent on having it belong there, don't change the zoning because it isn't required for them to build that. They want to get out of that zoning so that they don't have to abide by that ordinance 463. And I know that you weren't the mayor at that time and you weren't on the council at that time, but it was a promise from the city of Cottonwood to us that lived there. So I think the city should try to uphold its word and keep that ordinance in place. And someone asked about the affordability, and when I read the transcripts of that meeting and took the figures out of it, it sounded like it was $65,000 to $95,000 a year. So it's not cheap housing. So that, I just ask you to keep the zoning the way it is, or at best, just don't approve the development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have Eric Jerson up next, and following Eric Jerson will be Mark Hansen.
If only I would have known. Good evening. My name is Eric Jerson, 904 North Main Street. I'm the owner of the Haunted Group. We currently have 286 employees, and just so everyone knows in here, we're hiring. I'm here in support of this project and hope you'll make the right choice for the city of Cottonwood today. Nick's just celebrated its 20th anniversary last month. This was the beginning of a very positive public-private partnership between the city of Cottonwood and the Haunted Group, which I believe has benefited both parties throughout the years. Back then, we were just hoping someone would be willing to come to Old Town at night. Fast forward to today, and that's obviously no longer a concern. There are plenty of customers to go around day and night. Our new concern is trying to staff for all the customers we currently have. When a new business opens its doors, it's not a fear of losing customers to them, it's dividing the dwindling labor pool even more. It wasn't the pandemic that did this to our community. It was our governor taking our city's rights away to govern vacation rentals, I think. Out of 6,671 homes in Sedona, now 978 are vacation rentals. This really was the start of our workforce housing problem here in Cottonwood. Talk to the manager at your favorite grocery store, your local contractor, the hospital administrator, or the local auto repair shop, and they will all tell you the same thing. We are in a workforce crisis due to a lack of employee housing. You see it in the news that this is a problem everywhere, which I agree, but I can also tell you we've had to pay more at the Tavern Cottonwood than at the Tavern Scottsdale because of the cost of housing is currently cheaper in the valley. When did Cottonwood, Arizona become more expensive to do business with than Scottsdale, Arizona? As far as the neighboring properties go to this project, as far as the neighboring properties to this project goes, I understand their concerns, especially over the views. I too have had a building go up in the past and block the views, and it can be heartbreaking. It can take some time to get used to it, and you may never get used to it. But this looks to be a smart use of this property and could be a good buffer between single-family homes and a Walmart with a couple of car dealerships next door. I believe in time this will be considered a good addition to our city for most everyone. As for the folks concerned in the floodplain of additional water coming their way, this certainly can be handled by good engineering and retention, which I believe the developer sounds like he's providing. That should be not considered a deal breaker at this point. In conclusion, we do not charge property taxes in Cottonwood. There are none. Our main source of revenue, fortunately or unfortunately, come from sales tax. Until we come up with another way to fund our city, we need to make sure we have enough people to fill the workforce to cover the cost of supplying the services the city provides to all of the community, both county and city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. We have Mark Hansen up next, followed by Cheryl Fradenberg. Again, apologies if I'm not getting your name correct. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Alinsky, members of the council, thank you. You face a difficult decision, and I know it's not a vote you'll take tonight, but you're going to hear from well-meaning people, good well-meaning people on both sides of this issue. I just wanted to make my voice heard, both because we rely on our ability to bring in new people. Every week, we receive far more calls from folks in the valley who need legal help that we're simply unable to provide because we don't have the staffing. We would love to hire new attorneys, and when we tried to hire a new law clerk, she had to bring in a travel trailer just to have some place to stay. I understand that is also an issue experienced by the city's area housing director. We're in a housing crisis. It's not a new issue. My family moved to Cottonwood in the mid-1990s. I graduated from Mingus in 1999. The first house that me, my wife, and our new son were able to afford was Art and Sandy Kane's basement. And that was only because out of the kindness of their hearts, they let us live there. It took us over a year and a half to be able to afford to live in apartments at the Pueblo. The greater housing supply we're able to bring in, especially infill housing, especially multifamily housing, the lower it's going to drive housing costs for everyone. No project is perfect. However, this project addresses a critical need for the city and does it in a way that I believe is intelligent and well thought out. Addressing the views. That's a big issue for folks who are living on the west side of this property. I understand that. We have every right to be very proud of the views we enjoy here in Cottonwood. But to allow that to prohibit a neighboring property owner from developing their property would be, I think, not only to trample on that property owner's rights, but also to hamstring and handcuff the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission when they are considering future uses. The idea that zoning that was agreed to or put in place almost 20 years ago can and should bind this council or should bind future councils is one that really ignores the changing and growing needs of Cottonwood as our town grows and expands. Do any of you have any questions?
We do not, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right on time. All right, Cheryl Fradenberg. Fradenberg? Great. And behind you, ma'am, we'll have Robert Woods. Good evening.
Pardon me?
Behind you, we'll have Robert Woods is next. Behind you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. My name is Cheryl Fradenberg, and I have a home at 1459 Gray Bar Drive. So I am right behind there. And my husband and I bought this house in 1998, and we did specifically ask about that property. What is going to happen? What can they build there? They can only build houses. It'll be the same as you have. Okay, we buy the house. 2005, I go to all those meetings, and it worked because there was compromise. And we were willing to give some, and they were willing to put those 24 important stipulations in. One being a decent buffer zone for us, so that we did not have a building in our laps, which is basically what this is. And the height, where we could see. I listen to Miramonte, and they act like they were given so much by hauling that dirt out, and the price of the property, I know what they said at the last meeting, made it cost prohibitive. When a planning and zoning person asked them, could you make one story on the houses that are closest to the houses on the west? Could you make that one story? No, we couldn't because of the cost. Well, why would we have to bear the brunt of the financial responsibility for the depreciation on our houses? I mean, I wouldn't buy a house, and even selling the house, I would not buy a house where I'm looking at a brick wall with windows, because now we've lost our privacy in our backyards. There is no privacy. They've got second-story windows at a height that they can look right in our backyards, into our homes. They've just picked, I agree with the gentleman before us. We are in desperate need of housing. This is the wrong project for this site, and they knew how much they were crowding us. They are proposing 29 feet from our property line to the first building. It's only 29 feet. And, you know, they act like, well, we've taken out the dirt, so we've lowered it. Well, look at the drawings. See how much they've raised it from what it was supposed to be. It's just, Miramonte has not met us on, Bob Woods, my next door neighbor, asked him to put a pole up, so that was the height of the top of the roof. So when and invited council members and the planning and zoning committees to come out, and they said, we'll look into it. Well, no, they weren't gonna look into it. They don't want people to see the actual height and what that is gonna look like to the property. They show these beautiful renderings of the building and the landscaping and all the trees in front, like it's blocking us. We also asked at that meeting about the fencing. You know, is there fencing that could go up? Well, they're talking about 6 foot. Well, that's nothing when you've got windows at 2 stories right in your backyard.
Ma'am, I'm so sorry, but your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Woods, you're up, followed by Kay Woods.
Bobby Woods, 1473 South Gray Bar Drive. When we purchased our home in 1992, that's 30 years ago, the 11.6 acre property directly behind us was zoned R1L35, single-family residential in Yavapai County. Our expectation at that time was that the single-family residential lots would be developed on those 11.6 acres, providing a seamless extension of our existing neighborhood. Same scale, same density, same proportions, same environment, same sense of space. The city of Cottonwood annexed this Yavapai County parcel in 2002, and soon afterwards, on May 3rd, 2005, the city council approved a change of zone from single-family residential to C2 heavy commercial. The city council approval of Ordinance 463 included conditions that assured our important protections that help preserve and safeguard the homes and families in our neighborhood. Promises and protections included, number one, a height restriction, buildings and parking lot lights based on 3,382 to 3,386 feet above sea level datum as a construction ceiling. A 70-foot landscaper buffer on the west and south property line were also part of these protections. Apartments are already allowed in the existing in-place C2 zoning here. You can put apartments in that zoning right now. Miramont is asking for a zone change from C2 to planned area development to amend the general plan to circumvent those existing required restrictions. Changing the land use designation allows the proposed Silverado Lofts development to avoid honoring the current agreement and promises provided by our existing Ordinance 463. Our neighborhood's density is less than 3 units per acre right now. The proposed development's density is more than 13 units per acre. Property values are likely to go down in the surrounding neighborhoods as a direct result of this project being built out as is proposed. Traffic and safety of pedestrians in the surrounding neighborhoods and nearby schools are major concerns that would be impacted by the proposed development. Stormwater pollution, metered water dumping into Cherry Hills Wash from the development's proposed underground retention basins is a major concern, impacting the neighborhoods along UVX Road, Bridgeport, and the Verde River. I strongly urge the City Council to recommend that the current general plan use designation and zoning ordinance 463 be kept in place, keeping a promise made to protect our neighborhoods many years ago and today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Quick reminder to please hold your applause. There's no applause meter up here, so we're not keeping track of that, folks. Kay Woods, you're welcome. Come on up. And then we have, just before you begin, I just have one other person who's filled out a form to speak. So if there's anybody out there who wants to speak on this item, I don't take raised hands, I take yellow forms. So just keep that in mind. You can fill out a form and bring it up here, and then we'll get you up here to speak. Ms. Woods.
I'm Kate Woods, 1473 South Gray Bar Drive. Why won't the city of Cottonwood honor Ordinance 463, the existing zoning agreement? Why was nobody from our neighborhood invited to attend the March 8th, 2022 special work session meeting? Why will Marymount not agree to place the flagpoles on the proposed building corners along the property lines common to our neighborhood to indicate the accurate proposed building heights? Why did Marymount ignore existing requirements for landscape buffers and building height restrictions that were put in place to protect the existing neighborhood? Why is Marymount requesting a change of zone from C2 to PAD planned area development when the existing zoning already allows apartments as a use? Why did Marymount design the proposed apartments to have unobstructed views into the backyards and windows of the homes on Gray Bar Drive? Why hasn't a traffic study been required when it is obvious the proposed project will impact traffic on existing roadways, especially in the neighborhoods to the west? Why hasn't an environmental impact study been required for this site? Does the city council know that the ordinance 463 also restricted the parking light heights to reduce light pollution? Will the Cottonwood City Council consider the proposed project negatively affects property values in the neighborhood? Should Marymount proposed development be required to retain 100% of the stormwater impact? Should best management practices, BMP, for eliminating the discharge of pollutants to be required for this new development? Do the developers know that the Verde River and the Colorado River are federally regulated and that no polluted stormwater should be entering the Verde River from the Cherry Hills Wash? Can we all agree that the city and county have stormwater pollution plans that are not working well at Cherry Hills Wash? Why did the city officials decide that recently submitted videos and pictures depicting the polluted stormwater impacting our neighborhoods could not be shown to the public during tonight's hearing? Would the city of Cottonwood and Yavapai be liable if they are overlooking this new development stormwater discharge that will be impacting the homes along UVX Road and in Bridgeport that are already experiencing stormwater pollution from this Cherry Hills Wash? Is it still valid for the city council to consider the negative impact of new developments on our existing neighborhoods when approving zone change request? And I want to give a big thank you to the council members that came to my backyard. I really appreciate it, I did. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have next Tricia Razzo, who I think may be outside. Tricia, are you inside? You are, great. Come on forward. After you, we're going to get Mr. Bill Bullock up here. And I've just been informed some of these yellow forms turned white. So you may still find them, they're white. We just didn't plan to have so many folks here this evening, so we're doing the best we can. Good evening.
Hello, members of the council. My name is Tricia Razzo, born and raised here in Cottonwood, Arizona. I am employed with Foothills Property Management, Inc. We do rentals and management. We have been in the business over 25 plus years. I have personally been in the business 19 plus years. And we have over 350 properties, and we don't have enough. We have such a shortage of housing, and it is a crisis, and it is affecting everybody. I am in favor of this development. We need the growth, we need the housing for our people. For our communities, I talk to the employers where they're either having to close some of the days during the week because they don't have staff. They don't have staff because there's no housing. They're having to either relocate out of the area, move in with family, bunk up with friends, do roommate situations, staffing for the hospital. If they don't have anywhere to stay, they're not gonna be able to come. We need staff, we need the staff. We need the doctors and the nurses to come and take care of us when we're ill. We need them, but if they can't have a place, they don't have a place to stay, they can't come. And that is, people could die, but the housing situation is crucial. We are in crisis, and it's extreme, to the point where employees are either sleeping in their cars, they're homeless, they've had to buy RVs so they have a roof over their head for their families. To the extreme where employers have even bought up housing complexes so they can staff their housing, their employees can have housing. They took that to the extreme. Because if their staff don't have housing, they're not gonna have the staff. We need that. And then again, with that, you displace other people. Again, the housing crisis right now, it's bad, it's in front of us. We can't ignore it. We need to do something about it. We need this multi-housing to go up. We need it for our people. We need it for our communities. We need our people to be able to have a place to stay. We need to be able to have growth, have people come relocate here for employment, for our hospitals and our workforce. It's a dire need. Thank you. We do need it.
Thank you, Ms. Razzo. Thank you. Okay, Bill Bullock, you're next, and then we have Lori Bullock after you. Good evening.
Hi, guys. Thanks. This month, I will have been building in this Verde Valley for 50 years. I've built over 750 buildings. I know much about underground water retention and surface water retention. I kind of know all sides of this because I've been on all sides of this. So should the city decide not to vote and honor their promise that they made in 2002, I believe it was, to keep this as C2 zoning, which I find is appalling. It's like you guys really are just gonna lie and say, okay, we changed our minds. But at any rate, you can require the developer to meet requirements because I have had to do that. I've developed 3 subdivisions. I've designed sidewalks to nowhere, bike lanes to nowhere, sidewalks in front of other people's property, curb and gutter sidewalk in front of other people's property, and I've concreted a large portion of Silver Springs Wash, which had virtually nothing to do with development. You guys can require these people to oversize more than they have their detention. The biggest thing that I see, and I don't have a lot of use for engineers, and now I know why. We've seen somewhere between 12 and 1,500-year storms since I've lived on Bates Road for 39 years. Now, something doesn't jibe. What they're calling a 100-year storm is apparently a 3-year storm. And that's what you're designing to. I had no idea it was supposed to be a 100-year storm. I figured it was something they pulled out of the air. In 2001, I built the Unisource gas building on South Willard. That project included a portion of Railroad Wash. The city required the private owner of the building, Rob Olson, to build a concrete dam across the wash and created a large detention pond. That pond benefited, protected, if you will, dozens of landowners over roughly 3 miles that wash travels before emptying into the Verde River. This is very, very, very similar. My first few years we lived on Bates Road, we saw no sheet flooding. Walmart came in somewhere around 90, I'm not sure exactly when, and then we got our first sheet flooding during extreme monsoon events. Since then, we're getting it every 3 or 4 years. This year they had 2 and a half, a third one, and one of them came in October, which has never happened before. Have you guys all seen the video? Because if you haven't seen the video, you're missing it. You need to see the video that was sent out by the people on Bates Road. Obviously, the detention systems that are in place are inadequate. I also feel that there needs to be an ordinance immediately that requires people with underground detention to do a clean out and inspection. I would guess that the ones at Walmart are probably half full. If you could look at your own culvert out front, you'll see that there's gravel halfway up in your own culvert.
Mr. Bullock, sorry, sir. Time's up.
Time's up?
Yep, sorry, sir.
Well, we do have shopping carts along UVX Road.
All right, thank you for being here. All right, Lori Bullock, you're up next. Lori Bullock, you're up next, and Mr. Grosetta, you will follow Ms. Bullock. Good evening.
Hi, my name's Lori Bullock. I live at 1380 South Bates Road. And when we first moved into our home there back on July 4th, actually, of 1984, my husband was mowing the back pasture with our tractor, and he ran over a pheasant nest. There were 12 eggs, only one was broken. So, because we love the area and that unique wildlife, we borrowed a banty hen from a friend, and she sat on 6 of those eggs, and the rest we put in a homemade incubator. It was a great thing to do with your kids, great thing for our kids to see. Pheasant were common in that area. We also had white-tailed deer, cottontail rabbits in our Bridgeport area, along with differing varieties of birds, even the occasional bald eagle or golden eagle. We had a golden eagle that liked to stay in our willow tree. We haven't seen a pheasant in many, many years, as well as fewer rabbits and birds than before. Higher altitudes in Cottonwood, you'll have Gambel's quail, rattlesnakes, jackrabbits, but those species don't live near where our homes are. We have never seen in our nearly 40 years there rattlesnakes. I've seen quail twice, and there's not a roadrunner in sight. We've got a unique ecosystem in this area, and that needs to be maintained. Another concern are the desert diseases that have been moved into our green belt. After many weeks of coughing and feeling awful, I was diagnosed with valley fever. This occurred after going out and cleaning up after one of these flooding events, which, by the way, did not happen when we first moved there. We were there for at least 6 years before we had one of those. Now, as you've heard, they're more and more common. And I was told that valley fever wasn't something that happened here, didn't have it, but I also found out about 2 other cases at that same time of people who got it after these flooding incidences. One of our neighbors' 4-year-old healthy schnauzer puppy died in just 4 days after contracting leptospirosis. That also was not a disease that was in our area. My vet questioned me when I said, why would you even think of vaccinating for this? So I told her my neighbor's dog died from it. Now, this vaccine has been added to the local regiment for our dogs because they have had a rash of cases in this area. I heard of another one just last Saturday. We have irrigation, big trees, lots of grass to mow, leaves to rake, and the river is not far from us. It's not for everyone, but we love it. We bought there because we love it. I believe that poor planning, along with lack of maintenance and oversight from the city in the current Walmart site, is destroying a vital and beautiful part of our town. In August, we lost 2 38-year-old trees due to the flooding and the storms, one of them falling on the back of our house. This caused damage to our fencing, our overhang, our deck, and it made just a giant mess of our backyard. It was very costly, and we're still trying to get the backyard in shape. Our town is called Cottonwood because of all the cottonwood trees along the beautiful Verde. Let's do the right thing and maintain this amazing ecological diversity in our area.
Thank you, Ms. Bullock. All right. Mr. Grossetti, you're next, and then we have last Jesse Johnson. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Andy Grossetta. I reside at 625 South Mount Mingus Road, and I'm here representing the Cottonwood Ditch Association. You've heard many comments tonight regarding surface water runoff and all the flooding that is caused in that UVX Road, Bates Road areas. There's no question that we need housing in Cottonwood, and I'm not here to argue that one way or the other. What our concerns are regarding the Cottonwood Ditch is that we cannot accept any additional flows, surface water, stormwater runoff from any developments, wherever they may be. And I do want to commend the developers since the P&Z meeting, and we've had some correspondence in between. They've added another additional detention pond, and I understand maybe they might be willing to do another. I think anything that the city can do, working with the developer to oversize these detention ponds, I think is a move in the right direction. You've heard comments of people being flooded. There's pictures, there's videos. I know all these people. And the Ditch Association is in the flood control business by default. We just can't handle anymore. And so I do want to share with you that the city has reached out just recently, working with the Yavapai County Flood Control District and the Cottonwood Ditch Association in trying to figure out what areas are the highest, most impacted areas that we can take the water direct to the river. And that's what needs to happen. But I just want to say the city needs to step up. You have just recently, working with the Yavapai County Flood Control District, Supervisor Donna Michaels has been a force behind that, working with Lynn Whitman. And I think that is part of the solution for not only this particular project, but other developments that come up in the city. So the Ditch Association is very concerned regarding the runoff. Anything that the developer and you folks can do working together to minimize that not only for the ditch association, but all the property owners will be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, Jesse Johnson, you are next and last. Good evening.
Evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I actually hadn't intended to speak tonight. I sent a letter to you all in January. I reside on Destry Lane. My family and I bought a house there about a year ago. I'm also in social services, so I run an organization where we are acutely aware of the housing crisis in Cottonwood as we're trying to place folks into affordable housing. I think the largest issue for me, and while I think, you know, the line on the west side is tragic given our views, and certainly there's some issues from our side, the larger issue for me is really this being sort of categorized as affordable or workforce housing, because it is neither, and there are definitions for both. And affordability is everything for folks that are living here in Cottonwood. As an employer, we raised all of our salaries last year, so our minimum salary walking in the door is $40,000 a year, so that we could, hoping that folks would be able to afford to stay in Cottonwood. So that was something we just did as an employer. But you know, with most of the folks in Cottonwood working in the service industry, these are not affordable. The folks working at Walmart are not going to walk across the street to home in these apartments. And so this really is more about thinking that this is going to solve the housing crisis when it really is not. If you need 109 units a year, this isn't going to go up fast enough to even solve that problem, and then it's not going to be affordable. So I really just, for me, it's really just taking a step back and looking, does this really solve the issues that we're trying to address with the housing crisis? Because I don't think that it does. And I take issue with saying affordability means nothing, because it actually does mean everything for everybody living here in Cottonwood. So thank you.
Thank you, Johnson. All right, council. I didn't hear any specific questions, but I did hear a lot of concerns that were brought up, so maybe we can just take a second and have a conversation about some of those concerns. Any comments from council? The ordinance that was approved back some 20 years ago, can we have that elevation brought up again, Mr. Davis, that shows the line? I just want to discuss under C2 what could have been developed or what could be developed under that current ordinance.
Got it? There we go. Mr. Mayor, C2 zone has a number of permitted uses, which are quote-unquote heavy commercial. A lot of automotive uses like the dealership, retail and restaurants are allowed in both C2 and C1. But the C2 would tend to allow more automotive oriented uses in addition to those. C2 also allows as a conditional use multifamily housing subject to a conditional use permit. And that was an option here. As you heard before, the applicant would have had to adhere to that 3,386-foot height limit if it remained C2.
So what would the height limit be on the buildings given that elevation from the existing grade?
Mr. Mayor, the buildings on the west side of the property have different grade elevations. They step down very gradually from south to north as it approaches the wash. And so it depends on which building it is. As you can see, the difference between these two buildings, one building is a little more affected than the other. It looks like about a one-story difference between the proposed height and the 3,386 in most locations along the west side.
But a single-story unit could be built, commercial unit could have been built in the most extreme narrow part of that?
Yes, under the stipulations in C2, a commercial use could have been built as long as the height didn't exceed that, and there was a setback from the property line that's greater than proposed here.
What was the setback?
I don't have that offhand. It is in your packet. We included that ordinance 463, and all those stipulations were in there.
While we're looking, Council, are there any other questions for Mr. Davis?
I wasn't clear on the answer to your question, Mayor. So with our current code requirements, there is a one-story building that would fit at the most narrow portion?
Mr. Mayor, Council Member Henry, under the current conditions of the rezone, a commercial building could be placed towards the center of the property as long as the height did not go above the 3386 level. I don't know, it depends on where on the property it would be as to whether that could be a one-story or two-story building. The property slopes from southwest to northeast, so towards the northeast corner, maybe a taller building could be built closer to the intersection of Rodeo and Silverado.
We have an estimation of the percentage of the property that is undevelopable, for a one-story building.
I don't know how that would be calculated exactly. You mean under the existing conditions of the C2 zone?
Correct.
I don't have that calculation here. We could bring that back in a couple of weeks when we have our second public hearing on this.
I'd be curious to know. Yeah, that would be helpful, because it's my understanding that the ordinance that was approved was very restrictive to what could be done on that property. So it would be nice to know a little bit more information about that. What is developable?
We'll see if there is any information on that.
And how many homes it can take?
Go ahead.
And how many homes, what was developable, and how many homes would accommodate the current zoning?
If it were a conditional use, under conditional use, is that what you mean?
If it were a conditional use, as I said before, the development guidelines of the R3 zone would take effect, and the density could be up to 29 units per acre. Now, that's very hard to achieve, given our requirements for open space, given our requirements for parking, and our height limitations. Our height limitations are 35 feet and 2.5 stories. So, but it is possible to get a conditional use permit to go beyond the 2.5 stories. We just don't go beyond 3 stories, mainly due to fire apparatus issues.
Okay, but we're capped at 35 foot.
We're capped at 35 foot normally. In this case, because a PAD approval, as I said, is subject to the master development plan that was submitted. This master development plan shows these buildings at 25 feet, so that would be capped at 25 feet if this master development plan was approved. And if any change was proposed to that, they would have to come back through a public hearing.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from council? Okay. Mr. Davis, do you have an idea, just a sense of the acreage that drains into Cherry Hills Wash?
I don't have that information offhand, Mr. Mayor. We could get that for you later on. Our city engineer is not able to be here. Hopefully he'll be feeling better by that time and can answer some more technical questions on the drainage and detention issues.
Okay. Okay. All right, council, is there anything else? All right, so this is a first reading. There won't be any action taken tonight. We're going to bring this back at a subsequent meeting, as Mr. Davis explained in the beginning. So in 2 weeks, we'll have this back before council, at which point we will take action on this and the other items as presented. So with that, we will move on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a reminder on those stipulations that I read into the record, 9 of them were in your packet, and there was a 10th one that was proposed. It would probably be good to specify whether you wanted the 9 or the 10 stipulations as a part of that ordinance that's being read.
Personally, I like the 10th stipulation. I did have some specific questions, though, for our city engineer who's not able to be with us about the size and especially some of the comments that we heard about the volume. So, but personally, and I'd like to hear from the rest of council, but I would be interested in adding that 10th one.
And I did email that 10th one to James, who was able to respond to that and didn't have any corrections to that.
Okay. Agreed. Okay. Seeing heads
Mayor
nod,
and
so.
Council, we're looking, and it looks like in Ordinance 463, the setback requirement's pretty unclear. It references another plan, and we're not sure that was ever submitted. So it's unclear what the current setback requirement is in that stipulation.
Okay. Well, just having a better sense of how much of the 11.6 acres is developable would be great.
And we will endeavor to find that 18-year-old plan.
Okay, very good. All right, then we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. Thank you, sir. Yep. All right. If we could have our deputy clerk please read ordinance number 727 by title only.
Ordinance number 727, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, rezoning an approximately 11.6 acre parcel of land located on the west side of Silverado Drive, south of Rodeo Drive, at 1432 South Silverado Drive, Yavapai County, Assessor's Parcel number 406-12-042E from the present zoning of C2, heavy commercial, to PAD, planned area development.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next is discussion and direction regarding temporary general counsel services in the absence of the full-time city attorney. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Amanda Wilbur, Human Resources Director. As you all are aware, our current attorney, Steve Horton, is retiring from full-time employment with us on March 3rd, 2023. As you also know, we've been recruiting for this position for quite a while and have not successfully hired someone to take his spot yet. So the city will definitely have a gap between our current city attorney and our next city attorney. The city's legal needs will not stop during that time, so we do need to have a temporary solution to fill the gap between the attorneys. So tonight we are here to discuss what that temporary solution looks like. Although there are several different options we could probably go with, staff is recommending that we contract with Pierce Coleman, who is it's a firm that we have contracted with for several different items over the years. We have a very good relationship with them. They are very familiar with the city's issues in all sorts of areas. I have included for you in your documents some cost comparisons of some other firms that are that other municipalities use for this purpose. I can tell you that Pierce Coleman does contract with 11 other municipalities across the state and would be very familiar with our day-to-day needs, such as agenda review, contract review, personnel issues, things that the city uses an attorney on for our daily needs. So if you'd like me to go into more detail on any of those firms or pricing or other options, please let me know. Otherwise, staff's recommendation is to contract with Pierce Coleman for the short period of our gap between attorneys.
Okay. All right, council, any thoughts you want to share on this?
Not especially. I think the staff recommendation is sound after reviewing the, in the packet, the price range. I mean, there is a range in the pricing, but I think the added value with the prior history and experience with the city is sufficient to meet the price concern.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree as well. We do have a lot of experience with Pierce Coleman. I think they've served us well in the past, and I know they would do the same again. And there is a range, as you stated, and I know Mr. Horton's talked to council about this before. We're not really going to discuss it this evening, but I know he too would be willing to help in that transition period while we go to an interim, contract attorney into hiring our new full-time attorney. So that may help offset some of that cost, or at least supplement the services. So, but again, not necessarily for discussion tonight, but I'm pleased to hear that Pierce Coleman is, that council is following staff's recommendation. So I think what you need from us is really just direction at this time, right?
Yes. So it sounds to me like council is on board with pursuing Pierce Coleman, and I will work to make that happen. Thank you.
Great. The only one thing,
Okay.
I would like to have consistency in who's sitting in Mr. Horton's spot. So if that can be conveyed, I think it would be nice to have the same attorney sitting with us.
We can request that.
Okay, that'd be great. All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, council, do we need a break before going into, okay, we're going to take a quick, well, we have to do call to the public yet. Yeah. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, folks, so just stay where you are, okay?
Slow down. I mean, look how hard you have to push.
I don't think there's a way we can have them on all the time, because they'll just all feed back.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get this meeting started, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and start this meeting, so if you could please tone the conversation down, I'd appreciate it.
Mayor.
All right, folks, we're
Mayor.
going to go ahead and start this meeting. I'd appreciate you all being just as quiet as possible so we can get through this. Excuse Mr. Rodriguez.
Just wanted to announce that the rec center is currently closed. When we exit after the meeting, you'll need to leave the side doors rather than these doors on this side, okay? So we're already closed here, so they need to go out that other side.
Okay,
Thank you.
is this still open here for restrooms?
Yes, the
Okay.
restrooms are open. Just when we exit, we need to go out this other side.
All right, so folks, the restrooms are open still if you need them. Otherwise, we exit out here. There are yellow or white forms. If you would like to address the council this evening, you're more than welcome to fill one out. We'll get you up here. I'm going to lay down some ground rules, okay? So first, thank you all for being here this evening. Most all of you, but one, is here to speak about the drag show in Cottonwood, okay? So as I said earlier, this is just call to the public. It's not on the agenda, so we can't talk about it. That's per state statute. That's just how it is. We can, however, hear from you, and you'll have 3 minutes to come up and address us, okay? When you come up to address us, I ask that you be respectful. You can see how we run our meetings here. We try to be as efficient as possible and as respectful as possible, and I expect the same from all of you this evening. So when you come up to address us, please remember to address the entire council. We're not going to have a conversation with you, so don't ask us any questions. We can't answer you. Please do not turn around and ask the public behind you any questions. And we're going to get through this just as efficiently as possible. I know that this event, as proposed, tugs at a lot of our core values and principles, right? I know that this event is also something that many people look forward to seeing, okay? We're all, okay? It's true. And we're all sitting in the same room together, okay? And we're all neighbors, okay? And we're going to be real polite as we work through this. There is nothing that says we have to have a call to the public, okay? So I'm not going to tolerate any bad behavior on either side. I won't tolerate it. I'll simply end the meeting and we'll all go home, okay? So if you think you might be a bad apple, or if you came in here with somebody that you might fear is a bad apple on either side of this issue, you may consider not coming up to speak to us if you can't avoid grandstanding or turning this into a show or a spectacle. There is no applause meter, like I said earlier. I'm not going to tolerate applause. I'm not going to tolerate poor behavior. I will shut the meeting down, and that's that, okay? Can we all agree to those rules? I would appreciate that very much. We're going to get through this just as quickly as possible, and we are here to listen to you, okay? If there's somebody who has said something that's real similar to what you want to say, you can consider just coming up and say, I am opposed to a drag show, or I'm opposed to children being allowed at a drag show. You can say those things and just have it be heard, and we're listening to you, okay? You don't need to take all 3 minutes is what I'm saying. You'll hear that annoying buzzer at the end of 3 minutes, and I'm going to promptly shut you off, and we're going to get your neighbor up here to speak as well. So as you can see, we have many folks here this evening who've already filled out a form. We're going to get you all up here. But first, before we do, there's someone who actually isn't here to speak on a drag show. I want to call up, I believe it's Shell Adams. If I got your name incorrectly, I apologize. Shay Adams, welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Hi. I have a very rare case of electromagnetic field sensitivity. I did not know this was happening to me. About 3 years ago, I started getting very sick. I was always on my phones, my laptops, etc. So I'm very creative, and I start wrapping my stuff. Sorry, this is much. I started wrapping my stuff in aluminum foil that's supposed to block electromagnetic field. If you call people that are now having to make a lot of these clothes, since 30% of the populace is now getting very sick from our 5G, which is really 8G. I have bags of aluminum foil. I'll be glad to show you, riveted with holes. I made Facebook videos warning everybody, showing them bags of aluminum foil with holes from our silent weapons. These are silent weapons. I'll be glad to show you everything. I have had to buy an old car. I had to sell my Lexus. I was sick. My feet were burnt. My hands were burnt. My hair fell out. I didn't know why. I got an electromagnetic field reader, RF. I am driving in a car twice the deadly levels. I get into with Lexus. FCC, it's not real. I said, really? I've got all of this. How can FCC says this is not real? I'm burnt. I'm sick. Now I cannot work. I am really frying in here with everybody's stuff on. I cannot sleep in my bed. I've had to have a specialist come in my house. The rebar, they have put rebar in foundations, which shouldn't be there. It carries the electricity through it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I tell you what I do know what I'm supposed to do. People are probably unaware, so this is how I'm going to address this, because there's a lot of information out. There's a lot of information out because I had to go find it. First of all, I'm trying to ground. This gets me ungrounded. When we buy our phones, I got into with Apple. You're not supposed to be on your phone more than 2 hours a day, or your laptops. You signed an agreement. You're not supposed to hold it on your head, carry it in your body, or sleep with it. It's deadly. This kills the mitochondria of the cell. It's destroying the cellular structure of humanity. I've been screaming for 3 years. I didn't know this was happening. This is a God thing. I'm here. So, I am seeing trees going up with phony trees on our children's yards. You are adults. I'm adults. We can protect ourselves. Good luck. I'm poisoned. My life, I can't have.
Ma'am, please turn and face the council when you address us.
So we have got to wake up, people. I can bring in 2 weeks all my articles on this. I'm educating doctors. This has destroyed my life. And the symptoms started when 5G went up in Wuhan. And the symptoms are identical to guess what? Another proof I can show you. I'm very concerned. I want to scream. I want to cry when I see this on our classrooms of our children, on their yards. This is deadly.
Ms. Adams, your 3 minutes is up.
I will sit with you personally. I'll come to your office. I'll show you everything. This needs to be heard. These are lives.
Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to call up Amber Brandt, and then after Amber Brandt is Kelly Moffitt. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Council and Mayor. I just wanted to speak to the discussion that's going on about the drag show that's going to be taking place in April. I think that a lot of people are under the assumption that the city is holding this event and that they're sponsoring and paying for this event. And I just want to say that that's incorrect. I think that it needs to be brought to people's attention that the building that the event is being held in, while it is a city building, it is a public venue that anybody is permitted to rent, whatever type of event that they choose to have. I wanted to express that I have a disdain for the conversations that are going on in private groups that I think council needs to know about regarding social media, and that it is bringing, it could be bringing negative and tragic events to our city. I feel like the people are hiding behind the facts that the marketing materials for this event are all ages, and they're insinuating that the groups and these individual people that are marketing this event to specifically children and minors. I do not believe that that is the case. This event is no different than a typical concert. It's not a strip show. Similar to what we've seen at the main stage. This is more of a concert, impersonators like Lady Gaga, Britney Spears, things of that nature, Selena. Some would also say that different events that we hold in this community, like Thunder Valley Rally, are not kids appropriate, but that's where I think we as parents need to use our best judgment for our children. I would like to state that I find that it's great to bring diverse events to our community, and not all events are going to appeal to all people in our community, and that we have the right to stay home. We don't have to support the events that we don't agree with or that we don't want to recommend to our family. I would like to thank the organization for pushing through despite the opposition. And I will end with, he with who is without sin cast the first stone. Throughout the Bible, God warns against casting judgments on others, and I don't think we should. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brandt. We have Kelly Moffitt up next, followed by Forrest, I believe it's Lanchbury.
Mr. Mayor, council, staff, twice in one night. That's never happened before. Well, I'll try and be brief here. I'm very much opposed to this drag show event. I think it's a very unwholesome event, and I'm sure we all have a choice to make whether or not we want to attend. I certainly won't be attending, but I'm mostly concerned about children. They're reaching out for children. I'm watching these things occurring around the country. They're on the news, and these are not wholesome events. These are not good events for children. They're vulgar, and they're really not something that is representative of Cottonwood, in my opinion. I've lived here for 35 years, and this is the first event of this sort that I've seen. There is a bill that's been introduced in the Arizona State Legislature, SB 1030. There are other states that have introduced legislation to specifically go after these kinds of events, and mostly to protect kids in the community. We have an obligation as adults to protect the young, and as a Christian, personally, I very much resent what this group is putting forward. It's not for Cottonwood. We don't want to go this direction, and I also am not pleased with the fact that they're using a public building. And one that can be mitigated, and it can be done through good management. I don't think the city has a good operational plan for the use of its buildings. I know someone who has a lot of experience developing operating plans for buildings like this, and that person will offer his services for free to help you update and make sure that you can be more selective in the kinds of groups that you are allowed to use our facilities here. And I can guarantee that, but the one condition would be say no to this group. We don't need them in Cottonwood, and that's not being discriminatory, that's being wise, and it's being a good steward of what's been made available to all of us. So thanks very much.
All right, Mr. Moffitt. Just a quick reminder, folks, I'm going to give you a warning here. Please, no applause. I would appreciate it very much. Forrest Lanchbury, again, I'm sorry if I'm getting your name wrong. Is Forrest here? Great. And then followed by Chris Roach. Evening.
Good evening, thank you. I'm Forrest Lanchbury. I'm a business owner here in Cottonwood. And when I first seen this come up, I was quite upset from the standpoint that it's being done in a public place and my tax money is being used for that. And I do pay pretty good property taxes here, as a number of other people do, I'm sure. But I don't feel that it's appropriate. And I feel that it's something that in a private area, I mean, really, that's up to them if that's what they want to do. I don't feel like that's wrong in that respect, but I do feel that it's wrong to be doing it in a public place where children will be exposed to this, and also that alcohol will be provided in the same time. And I don't feel that this is a good precedent to be set in the city of Cottonwood. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have Chris Roach next, and then you'll be followed by Joel Haslam. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. It seemed like you were almost diverting. Most of the people that are here at this meeting tonight weren't here to mitigate stormwater and talk about apartment buildings. They were talking about, they wanted to come and talk about their anger about this event that's being proposed to happen in a city complex, the sexualization of children by demonic pedophiles. It's just absolutely, that you would even consider bringing that, they're after the children. They want children to come to this thing. These are grown men dressed up like women. We've all seen the videos online. We've seen them on the news. We've seen them on the internet. They want to bring drag to a rural community. Anybody with a cell phone, anybody with a computer, anybody that watches cable TV, drag is in our community already. We don't need to put it on a spectacle in a city building that's enticing children to come to this? I think it's disgusting. I hope you will get on your knees and pray about this. When you close your eyes for the last time, God's not going to worry about how much stormwater you mitigated or the height of the apartment buildings that are around this town. He's going to want to know what you did to protect the weakest and the most vulnerable of us all, which are the children of this community. God help you all. Hope you make the right decision.
Thanks, sir. Joel Haslam, you're up next, followed by, I believe it's Ron Peters. Again, I apologize if I'm getting the names wrong, but Joel Haslam, are you with us this evening? All right, we're moving on. And Ron Peters, you'll be followed by Randy Burdette. Good evening.
Good evening. How y'all doing? I'm Ron Peters. We have a ranch out at the end of Bill Gray Road. I was the first male volunteer for the Guardian Ad Litem in North Carolina, representing abused children in the court system. I had most of the severe parental termination cases. This drag show, drawing children in, is wrong. It triggers things with children. Children are open to all kinds of things. It's just plain wrong. It's abuse. And if any guardian brings their children to this kind of thing, they should be accused of abuse. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Randy Burdette, followed by Misty Knight. Good evening.
Hi. Thank you for letting us speak today. I have something that I wrote here for all you guys. I'm here to raise awareness on an issue about an all-ages drag show event that is being scheduled for April 8th at the clubhouse this year. I and many others don't mind drag shows as long as they don't involve children or minors. I am here to ask the council to require the event to be at least 18 plus or 18 plus or 21 plus, since the event planners have said the alcohol will be served as well. Parents bringing their children to this event doesn't make taking them to such events appropriate for children. Drag shows and the drag scene are inherently adult entertainment. Since at least 1932, drag has been attached to alternative sexual preferences in a time when it was dangerous to have them. Therefore, alternative sexual preferences are a part of drag and cannot be separated from it. Also, the overt sexualized dances that take place in regular drag shows, along with being dressed up as hypersexualized versions of women, make drag adult entertainment, especially if the drag queens featured will be dressed in their usual attire, which is often not child-friendly. I've also obtained information recently showing a video of one of the main event organizers using the dance move that's called the spread eagle, and in Lake Havasu, Arizona. And I don't think that's child-friendly. And if they're going to keep doing that, the same thing there, and then they come here, that shouldn't be, it should be 18 plus or 21 plus. With that said, if the city council, mayor, and Cottonwood community wish to retain the family-friendly community image, I suggest that this event be moved elsewhere to a private business or building where taxpayers won't have to fund such an event. I hope that the city council and mayor make the right choice to keep children out of inherently adult entertainment events. Thank you for listening to my and all of our grievances.
Thank you, sir. All right, we've got Misty Knight coming up next. I just want to commend you folks. Are doing a great job so far. Appreciate it very much. We are going to get through this evening just as quickly as we can. Misty Knight, you're up next, followed by Christopher Hall. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Misty Knight. I'm a law major at the University of Arizona Honors College, as well as a drag performer in Tucson and Phoenix, Arizona. I'm here today to address the backlash regarding the Arizona Pride Tour. I see some concerned parents here today, and I understand wanting to protect children during such a scary time. But I'm here to tell you that this hate and anger towards the drag performers is misguided. The art of drag serves no threat to the community. Drag is about freedom of expression and unity among those who have been cast aside by society. It provides a safe space for people to come together and creates a sense of family to many people who do not have that support elsewhere. I've heard a lot of rhetoric about how drag performers are dangerous with absolutely no evidence to back it up. The reality is, the ones who are in the most danger are us. There's been a continuous rise in violent attacks against drag performers, as well as transgender and gender nonconforming individuals that have been carried out by violent hate groups and radicalized individuals. There have been 141 anti-drag attacks in 2022 alone, and this year we're already on track to see more. According to a new study by the Williams Institute at UCLA Law School, transgender people are 4 times more likely to experience violent victimization, including rape, sexual assault, and aggravated assault. Additionally, LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. This is due to unwarranted hatred and bigotry that continues to be perpetuated today. I see lots of people here who want to make a difference in their community, but unfortunately, they're doing this by vilifying the very people who have been actively working to provide kindness, respect, and apathy to the members of the community who need the most protection. I also wish to address the clear constitutional violations that come with restricting entertainers based on their personal beliefs, gender expression, or sexual orientation. Everybody has the right to feel the way they do about LGBTQ individuals, but it goes against our Constitution to deny any kind of self-expression, art on these, any action that restricts free speech or artistic expression should be rejected by any American who respects the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Misty Knight. Christopher Hall, you're up next, followed by Jennifer Roch.
Mayor, Council, my name is Christopher Hall, and I am the Executive Director of Miss Nature LLC, which is the organization who is putting together the 2023 Arizona Pride Tour. I am here today to help educate the community regarding our event and to remind the city of Cottonwood of their duties to represent all of its constituents, including those of the LGBTQ+ community. I often hear that on the other side of the aisle, people state that they are here to protect the children. We are here to do the same. Our events are open to families who consist of multiple facets and different creeds of individuals, whether it be 2 mothers, 2 fathers, or 2 individuals of different genders, that want to simply support an inclusive environment. When raised in these environments, children do not learn to hate themselves and commit suicide. They learn to love themselves and learn to love others. We often hear parents against the LGBTQ+ individuals that schools should not teach their children LGBTQ+ topics, and that as parents, they should have an opt-out program and leave these topics to parents to discuss with their children. The same is true in this case. Parents who want to raise their children in inclusive environments should be allowed to do so and should be allowed to take their children to such events. Do note, we do not open the doors and allow children in without parental consent. We also hear that these events are compared to adult entertainment and are often compared to strip clubs. Truth is, these entertainers sign contracts keeping them to certain standards that are family friendly. They are able to distinguish the difference between a bar event and those geared towards families. Contracts address appropriate clothing, how to handle alcohol consumption, and other various topics. Many of our entertainers are government employees who have their fingerprint clearance cards. While parties may find bad examples within our community, this is not a representation of us all. Same can be said about those in religious institutions where bad things have occurred, and this is not a representation of all people of faith. Now that we have established the misconceptions regarding this event, let us address the responsibility of the council. One of the city's visions reads as follows: the city of Cottonwood provides leadership and solutions to ensure a prosperous community where a diversity of people and nature thrive. The council makes policy decision and empowered to enact ordinances and policies to protect citizens' rights. Again, this is a private ticketed event, and we have followed the appropriate procedures to secure the event as any other citizen, including paying a deposit. Denying us the right to hold this event, and dictating who can and cannot attend is a violation of our constitutional rights, and we have already been in close contact with the ACLU of Arizona, so thank you guys.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Up next, we have Jennifer Roch, and then that's followed by Shelley Candelaria. Again, I know I'm probably doing a poor job with a lot of these names. Good evening.
Hello. My name is Jennifer Rao. I reside in Cornville, and I am a mother of 3 children. My husband and I moved to the Verde Valley almost 5 years ago after the birth of our first child, my son. It's amazing how once you become a parent, your priorities shift, and you suddenly realize how much evil is in the world when you are faced with this innocent soul to protect. So I thought I would live in Tucson for many years before I became a mom. But it was within the first 2 weeks after my son was born that I told my husband, get me and my baby out of the city. So one of the major draws of coming to the Verde Valley was the wholesome small town feel, and we've attended many great events here in Cottonwood that included families. I fear that if we allow an event such as the one that we are discussing here tonight to be held in Cottonwood, we risk turning our small town community into another big city Sodom and Gomorrah. We need to give Mr. Nature, I refuse to call him Miss, a resounding no. We do not want this for our children, and we do not want this in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rao. Next is Shelley Candelaria, followed by Jason Keeble.
Yes, I'm this short.
Good evening.
Hi, Council. Hi, Mr. Mayor. My name is Shelley Candelaria. I was born and raised in the Verde Valley area. I'm a local nurse, business owner, and more importantly, a member of this community in which I raised my 5 children. It has come to my attention that the Cottonwood City Council is considering to allow a drag show to be held in a public building open to all ages, with or without parental consent. I would like to know what parent or board member considers this event age appropriate for children, our most vulnerable population of this community. To me, this event fits somewhere in the pornographic and pedophilia scene, producing the further breakdown of the nuclear family and the breakdown of godly morals and ethical values that this community holds very dear. Contrary to what most people believe or even understand, these events are of specific ideology that can be detrimental to a child's mental health, self-worth, morals, and ethics. I personally believe that these ideologies are of satanic nature. If you would like any studies or testimonies on these subjects, I would certainly love to show you and bring them to you in your offices if you would like. It saddens my heart to know that our city would allow our children to be subjected to this immoral and unethical event. Saddens me that my children would be left vulnerable to this graphic event if allowed to be in public on the day of this event. I am demanding that the denial of this event and others presented like it in the future that would go on in our community, and would urge all members to seek wise counsel, such as doctors, victims, and God, before allowing an event like this into our city. The destruction of our children's lives will be more than we can even comprehend or even understand. Rather than fitting in with the popular political movement of these events, may it instead stand firm on our morals and to protect all members of this community, most especially our vulnerable children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Candelaria. And next we have Jason Keeble, followed by Jeremy Lyle. Good evening.
Good evening, council and mayor and staff. My name is Jason Cable. I have been in the Verde Valley for about almost 5 years now, moved from Florida, and this is my son Samuel. I am a father of 5 children between 8 and 13. He's my oldest. I'm a business owner here. I own and operate Verde Valley Concierge Medicine. And I just wanted to voice opposition to the drag show coming here. And the reason for that is it's just the idea of inviting children in the first place and having it be about children coming, I think is a level of perversion that's a sign of our times that we're living in. I would, there's just like it was mentioned earlier about the ordinance going through the Arizona legislature right now that would classify drag shows in the same category as strip clubs, which would forbid minors from attending them with or without parental consent. I think, speaking for most of us here, when I say if there was an event that was approved on city property that was a strip club or some kind of sexual in nature heterosexual event, there'd be just as many people here. And I want to reiterate that I am not, and I think the vast majority of the people in the Verde Valley, we're not against the LGBT community, but we're against the agenda of a minority of the LGBT community to push this and to push this agenda on children. And just as was quoted earlier, the people that are the LGBT youth are at higher risk of suicidal ideation and so on. And so why are we evangelizing this to our community and allowing it to be here? The same thing with the AIDS testing that's going to be provided. What's the purpose of that other than to see who are we safe with? And as a medical provider, there's a lot of other diseases besides AIDS that go through our community. I think this is a crisis for the public health also in this community, and I'm concerned about that. And so just, and I think an ordinance should be passed here in the next several weeks to make it so that minors can't come to these events and they can't be on public property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cable. Jeremy Lyle, you're up next, and you'll be followed by Jasmine Reed. Jeremy Lyle, you with us? Not present? Okay. Jasmine Reed, you are more than welcome to come up. And just to let folks know, we're maybe a third of the way through. So as a reminder, if what you want to say to council has already been stated, you're more than welcome to come up and just say, I'm in favor, I'm not in favor. Give a brief little synopsis. You don't have to take all 3 minutes. Jasmine Reed, you're not with us? All right, we'll move on then to Mr. Mitchell. You with us this evening, Mr. Mitchell? Great. And Mr. Mitchell, you'll be followed by Becky Keck, I believe. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You all know who I am. I've been before you before. I don't want to belabor too much of what's already been said, but I do have to say that it's already a proven fact that these events such as this so-called entertainment is almost, well, it's always, and I've done the research, and I'd be glad to give you all the research I've done in regards to this. They're always grooming events. I have not found personally any exception. And I want to reiterate too, we have to protect the most vulnerable in our communities. That's a charge that you have to take, you have taken as a, in your oath. You know, you've got to protect them. And I'll leave it with this, or rather, if I can submit to you some material for you to read in your decision-making process, and I've got, I think, about 230 signatures I want to leave with you as well. So in closing, I just pray, my sincere prayer is to hope that you reject this as elected officials who basically work for us. You understand that. Personally, I've never seen such a large turnout as this in the 11, 12 years I've lived here. And so I'm grateful to everybody who's shown up to speak the truth about this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Becky Keck, again, sorry if I'm getting your name wrong, and then you'll be followed by Josh Humphrey.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for the time you put into this community. I live in Clarkdale. I returned to the Verde Valley about 2.5 years ago. I'm a retired public school teacher for about 35 years, and I have to say my LGBTQ parents and students were some of my favorite. They were respectful, they were hardworking, and they were caring individuals. And I asked myself the question, why should they be denied anything the rest of us take for granted? I hear about prayer here, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I think of one person's sin is another person's entertainment. There are a lot of things I like to attend here. We moved here from Tempe, which is kind of a happening place. There are certain things I wouldn't attend. There are certain things I wouldn't attend with my children and with my grandchildren. So I would stay home and watch Andy Griffith and MASH and not say, because I'm not interested in attending this, no one should be able to. I think we're hearing about how vulnerable the children are. Unless a parent is willing to take a child, those children are not going to be affected by this. There's no way. If you don't want your children to be affected by this, then you need to stay home and you need to talk about this and maybe spend some time with your children, and they'll be taken care of that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keck. And Josh Humphrey, you are up next. You'll be followed by, not you. You'll be followed by John Stone. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I moved to Cottonwood last year with my family for church and work. I object to this outright display of depravity in our town. This is a pride tour, as the flyer says. Pride is a sin. It should not be on display. It should be repented of. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogance, and the evil way. Proverbs 8:13. There was an alarming reality on display in the flyer. Two things, Mr. Cable mentioned it. This is what it said. All ages welcome, which includes children, and rapid HIV testing provided. Those two things should never be in the same sentence. If anyone watched the Grammys the other night, that's the next step. This time it's a pride tour. Next time it will be something more satanic on display. If I could end with this, 1 John 2:16 through 17. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of God abides forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Humphrey. And we have John Stone. You're up next. You'll be followed by Dale Moats. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Alinsky and board members, council. I love every one of you. I love everyone in the audience. That is because we're all creatures of God. We have the same blood in us, and we're all human, belong to the human race. I don't care if you're brown, red, black, white, right side, left side. We all have to learn to live together while we're on this earth. And to do that, we have to decide what we're going to do with our opportunities. We have the opportunity to choose. God gave us that right. And the right to choose bears a lot of responsibility. If we went for a hike with our kids up in the beautiful Sedona trails, and Mom and Dad said, stick close to me because otherwise you might get lost and we wouldn't know how to find you. Or don't get too close to that cliff because it's a beautiful something down below. And so we do have the choice as adults and even as children. So God gave us a guidebook. It's called the Bible. It's published more editions of the Bible than any other book in the whole world. You can check that out. I know it sounds extravagant, but it's true. You know so many people that have a Bible, that give a Bible. What we need to do is read it and ask God, what is this saying to us? So that's our responsibility. The choice is ours, and the Bible makes it very clear what things God approves and what God things He warns us about. Because if you've ever had a nightmare at night or an experience in your life, that's the most horrible thing you can remember, or maybe seeing someone else. That's what the Bible describes as those that deny God and His ways. They're going to end up that way, not by God's choice, but because they denied the opportunity that God gave them to make the right choice as lined out in the Bible.
Thank you, Mr.
very
Stone.
much.
Thank you. Dale Moats, you're up next. You'll be followed by Carl Lodigo. Thank you, sir. Dale Moats.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Dale Partridge. Let me fix this real quick. I live here in Cottonwood with my wife and my 3 children. I'm a pastor of a small church that is right outside, close to the border of Clarkdale. I'm representing here 900 plus citizens that have lived here in the Verde Valley who have signed the petition in the last 7 days against this drag event, and to ask for the council to reject the application for the Arizona Pride Tour that is scheduled to take place on city property on Easter weekend. As Christians and conservatives who stand for the biblical and binary model for gender, we do not believe an all-ages event to host grown men who shake their private parts in a stripper-like clothing honors God. We don't believe that it honors the moral constitution of the city and the citizens of Cottonwood. As council members, you are to represent the people. And regardless of your political position, your moral position should always be to protect the community from public expressions of sexual perversion and indecency. My question for you is this: what type of legacy would you guys all like to leave? Do you want your grandchildren to look at your Wikipedia page in the future and to see that you guys approved Cottonwood, Arizona's first family-friendly pride event, drag event? Is that the hope for the reputation that you will have? Because this will be connected to your approval. You see, cities, companies, libraries across the country, They fear the condemnation of the LGBTQ community more than they fear the condemnation of the Christian and moral community in their towns. And more importantly, the condemnation of God. And sadly, it's because the LGBT community is more willing to fight for their sin than the good, upstanding citizens are willing to fight for the truth. Edmund Burke once said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to stand by and do nothing." The people of Cottonwood are not sitting back and doing nothing. They vocalize their position clearly in this petition. You can read the comments, 900 of them. My colleague, Pastor Dustin Daniels of River Bible Church, has sent each of you a copy to your email. Our formal request is that you do not allow this event to take place in our great city of Cottonwood. May God give you the courage and conviction to do what is right. I will add one last thing, is we've had a lot of people say that this is an issue primarily because of children, but this is an issue even if the children aren't there, it's wrong.
Thank you, sir. We have Carl Lodigo up next, and you'll be followed by Barry Jones. Good evening.
Hello, Mayor Tim, Council. I'm representing about 200 people from Verde Community Church that signed a petition, and I'd like to share with you what they signed. I also want you to know that I have 5 children, been living in Clarkdale for about 9 years. First, I'd like to say, on behalf of those who signed the petition, we appreciate and honor our city council representatives for your sacrifice. We appreciate you for your applied wisdom in navigating the cultural prosperity of Cottonwood. Thank you very much, especially on a night like this. In regards to the Miss Nature's Arizona Pride Tour, we as citizens of the Verde Valley oppose events in public spaces to all ages, exposing children and youth to hypersexualized entertainers and sexual content intended for mature and adult audiences. We believe this event is contrary to the common community values held by the broad spectrum of citizens of Cottonwood. We also want to bring attention to legal age requirements in state and federal laws regarding mature sexual content. We're asking our city council members to please check established laws, and we appeal to the council to do the right thing when representing our community values. We believe your leadership will set good precedents for healthy community future events of all ages and diversity of all people to build our community and our people. We ask for your diligent leadership in enforcing these limitations to all groups promoting the event of Miss Nature's Arizona Pride Tour. We believe it is our responsibility as we the people to oppose this and all publicly held mature sexually orientated events. And we thank you so much for your sober consideration of our concerns. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Barry Jones, you're up next, and you will be followed by Donna O'Daniel.
Honorable Mayor and councilors, I'm brokenhearted that my community is targeted by those who have totally unmoored sexual expression from morality. Further, I'm appalled that what for the better part of my life and for millennia actually has been clearly identified as immoral and dangerous to the young and children has been codified by our legal and political system as a matter of rights. What started as tolerance for private behavior, very private behavior in one's bedroom, is now to be allowed and celebrated anywhere, including an event advertised for a public building with children invited. This is inviting the wrath of Almighty God on our nation, the nation that I love. Without this moral framework of Christianity, the only option for holding this nation together is tyranny, to be wielded against those who will never give up morality. I am praying for you, our city leaders, to have the moral courage and wisdom to guard our community from harmful libertinism. Surely you haven't bought the lie that total sexual hedonism masquerading as entertainment is a positive good or a morally neutral right at the least. I understand that you have constraint on you to be neutral to all parties who want to use public facilities. But I also know by experience that you may impose as many restrictions and/or conditions as you deem conducive to the public good. My suggestion for the current discussion would be the removal of the invitation for children and underage youth, and the stipulation that there be no invitations or flyers offered outside the building before or during the event. Please do what is right, what is good for our city.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. May I ask you, sir, if you could, Mr. Jones, can you help bring that mic down for Ms. O'Daniel?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Here, let me get you closer. Hold this.
This guy already spoke. Yeah. This is what he came up. I called this and he came up.
Mayor and city councilors. Jesus said in Matthew 18:6, "Whoever shall cause a child who believes in me to stumble, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and he were cast into the sea." Child abuse rampant in America, termed sexual grooming, is performed by the LGBTQ crowd. A video I saw last month of a pride event in another state where children were scooping up money thrown out by the near-nude dancer as he pranced around swinging his naked buttocks was so indecent and obscene, I was totally shocked. And this lewd behavior is coming to a public place open to children in our town? The current onslaught of perversion is the implementation of a strategy of psychological, social, and moral subversion laid out in 1989 by Marshall Kirk and Hunter Madsen in their book, After the Ball, a manual for the, quote, overhauling of straight America, close quote. They are Harvard-trained professionals in neuropsychiatry and public persuasion. They stated, quote, "We mean something far more profoundly threatening to the American way of life, conversion of Americans' emotions, mind, and will through a planned psychological attack using techniques of desensitizing, jamming, and conditioning. We mean subverting their prejudice to our own ends, whether they like it or not," close quote. We reject this subversion. Protect children and adults by canceling the Arizona Pride program scheduled for April 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Daniel. Scott Murray, you're up next. And after you, is there a Dale Moats in here? I think Dale Partridge came up instead. Is there a Dale Moats? I may be getting the name wrong in here. We're going to count you as not present. So Scott Murray, you're up next, and you'll be followed by Dana Alvey. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for allowing us to speak this evening. My name is Scott Murray, and my wife and I moved here from California about 10 years ago. We chose this area because we believed that it was a small town and had small town values. And I also have to tell you that we're faithful followers of Jesus Christ. And we believe that this is not a good thing for this town. You're opening our town up to things that are illicit, and we're against the indoctrination of minors into adult behaviors. So I won't tell you all the different scripture that I could share with you, because it's about communication and language. I don't think you would understand that if you're not a believer. So I'm going to speak to you in terms that you do understand. Codes. There's a code, A.R.S. 13-3623, and it deals with indoctrinating minors, anyone under the age of 18, into adult behaviors. And they're felonies. They're category 1, 2, and 3, class 3, 4, 5, and 6 felonies to indoctrinate minors knowingly into something that's an adult behavior. First-time offense is a minimum of 10 years, 17-year presumptive, and 24-year max of incarceration. So each of you are going to share in that if this goes through. It's a state statute. I used to be a police officer in California, and I study statutes. So I think you guys should too. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I'm not here to condemn anybody. I just want to make sure that you're equipped with the right resources so that you make a good decision. And I pray that you will make a good decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. All right, Dana Alvey, you're up next, and then followed by Sherry Moffitt. Again, just want to say thank you to you all for being so respectful. It takes a lot of bravery. A lot of you have never been to a public meeting before. It's not easy to come up and address council, especially in front of so many people. So thanks for your cooperation. And just as we near the end, it's going to be very anticlimactic because, as I said, we can't discuss this at all. It's not on the agenda. We can't answer any questions, and there will be no vote on this item. So it's really just going to be kind of anticlimactic. The meeting is really just going to end after we take public comments. So just wanted to prepare everyone as we draw towards the close of the meeting. Ms. Alvey, go ahead.
Yes, well, good evening, Mayor and council members. I came tonight because I thought there was going to be discussion. I was told that this would be on the agenda. And lo and behold, I went on Friday night and, mysteriously, it's not there. So I thought, okay, I've been following these kind of things for a very long time. I'm from California. I've lived in Clarkdale for 2 years and in Cottonwood for 4. And so it didn't surprise me, but I can't ask you any questions like, is this already been decided? Because I think I heard you, Mayor, early on, say something to the effect that if anybody is here for the event that will be taking place. So I don't know if you can even answer that. I don't know. But I'm glad to see that nobody was deterred despite it not being on the agenda because we all feel the same way. I wish Misty was still here because my heart just went out to her, you know, what she spoke about her personal life and how she's kind of evolved into this lifestyle. But this is not a good event for the council to even consider. You know, we can talk about the taxes to ourselves. We don't want that. There's so many other uplifting events that we could be totally in support of. And this just all of a sudden, at least for me, and I don't know how many more here, just all of a sudden was happening. And I'm like, do we get a voice? Do we get to tell you how we feel and why we feel this way? So I am against this event. And everybody has been much more well-spoken than me, but I just want to appeal to your hearts and your parents' hearts and your Nana's hearts and your grandpa's hearts to remember we have a duty to our children and we have failed them. I have failed my children in being asleep at the wheel and allowing little things to slowly open the door. And as Misty went off on a transgender route, I mean, she went into the whole thing of what really this is all about. It is not just a drag show. And all you have to do is go online and watch one. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Alvey. Sherry Moffitt, you are up next. You'll be followed by Ashley Kupnick. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. My name is Sherry Moffitt. My husband and I have lived in Cottonwood for going on 37 years in June. We moved here from California. And wow, have we seen Cottonwood change over the years. And not for the better, especially now. We have raised our 3 daughters here, and now we have 4 grandchildren, and we love them all dearly. I keep hearing tonight that this is a crime against children, but I'd like to add that it really is a crime against humanity. And the reason why is because these drag queen shows are what I would consider the gateway to much more perversions and sickening lifestyles. And what they're doing with our children, and I'm not sure if many of you are aware, whether it be you folks or the ones behind me, but these are just a few of the examples of what is going on in our country. And this is being reflected now in our town. And if you're not aware, California Governor Newsom's wife has been using taxpayer dollars to develop pornographic videos that have now been purchased by over 5,000 schools in America, across America. The videos are being shown in elementary schools, perverting the minds of children, and the Newsoms are pocketing millions of dollars. I encourage you all to look into that report. It's on Rumble, rumble.com, and you can find the whole report there. On YouTube, it's amazing, but there is what they call the Gay Men's Choir. The San Francisco Gay Men's Choir on YouTube is singing a song that says, "We're coming for your children." Now, this is serious, folks. We need to wake up, all of us, whether you're Christians or not Christians. And I would like to say, I know that lady, or transgender, or whatever she was, said that they have been attacked because they're victims. Well, what about the children being the victims? They are the victims. And another thing that you may not be aware of is that you can go on the website, and I have the website, but it's Taco Bell is now offering and encouraging people to make reservations for their drag queen lunch shows. This is a fact. You can find it online. Oh, my time is up. I just urge you, council, please, please consider what is happening. And I just pray that you all make the right decision, and let us remember why God destroyed Sodom, because of Sodomites, and Gomorrah, and
Ms.
it's
Moffitt.
serious.
Thank you. Ashley Kupnick, and you'll be followed by Crystal Miller. Ashley, you here? Thank you. Great. And then Crystal Miller, you're following.
All right.
Good evening.
Mayor and council members. My name is Ashley, and I stand before you today in opposition of the drag show that Cottonwood is allowing to come to our town. Do I want the drag show here? No, not necessarily. But as soon as it was deemed a public event for children and people of all ages, you awoke a sleeping giant, and that sleeping giant is mothers like myself. I am so disappointed in our elected officials that they would put the children in this community in a position to view sexually explicit content. So each and every one of you who are sitting here today, would you be okay with your young children or your grandchildren being subject to pornography? Because this drag show is no different. We have all seen videos of these events being held where kids under 10 are throwing money as men gyrate around a room. This is the equivalent of taking your child to a strip club, which I think we all can agree is not okay. These children are at such a vital stage in their development and are so easily influenced. And all of you are allowing them to be influenced in a way that will no doubt negatively affect them. Nothing about this is normal, and I refuse to stand idly by as our children are groomed to think that this is okay. Also, I know you guys can't answer any questions, but I would pose a question to think about is who allowed this flyer to be on elementary school campuses? Campuses where my child, my oldest son, who is in first grade, he can read, and he reads everything. He would be able to read this flyer. So even as a parent, if I wouldn't take my child there, they are being exposed involuntarily. A flyer that clearly states that there is free HIV testing. So are we also showing our kids that it is acceptable to be sexually promiscuous? At what point do we put our children above being woke? I stand here on behalf of not only my own kids, my family's kids, but the parents and friends of this community and who are not in favor of this event. I urge you, as the governing members of this great city, that you would revoke your decision to allow this event to take place in our rural town, or at least ask them to please change it to a 21 and over. And just remember that sex, alcohol, and underage kids are never a good combination. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kopnick. And next is Crystal Miller. You'll be followed by Dr. Philip Dirksen. Good evening.
Good evening. Please forgive me if I repeat things that have been said, but I'd like to read this in its entirety. As I contemplate the Grammys from this last weekend and what is lauded as entertainment, I wonder standing before you is useless. But as a parent in this community, I have to try. Obviously, our culture has been overrun with sexually explicit content. By far, the majority of it is not suitable for any mentally, emotionally, or sexually healthy person, let alone an impressionable and malleable child under the age of 18. And that's what this agenda is specifically wanting to do. It is, per the Miss Nature's event page, an attempt to influence rural towns to give resources to children under 18. The target audience is our children and our rural town. It is relevant to add, currently in Arizona, there is a bill, SB 1028, moving in the Senate that would reclassify drag shows in the same category as a cabaret show where there is alcohol being served. It would make it illegal to have children under the age of 18 there, regardless of how much sexual content is in the show, but would label it for adults only. You can also reference ARS-11-811 and SB 1030 for more details on these. The agenda we are opposing is a stranger's desire to expose our community's children to pornographic adult entertainment mixed with adults drinking alcohol and on a party high of adrenaline and dopamine. Why would any adult, be it a parent or an entertainer, want to expose a child to this form of grooming and desensitizing content? Per the CDC website, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 13 boys have been sexually abused before they're 18. Per the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, 90% of sexual abuse is from someone that they knew, loved, and trusted. And these numbers are inaccurate and conservative, as there are many adult victims of child abuse who have not come forward and children who are still being abused. While this may seem unnecessary to bring up or out of context for this discussion or even inflammatory, this form of art or entertainment is typically full of sexually explicit content inside of a sexually charged atmosphere. Kitty Demure, a well-known drag queen, has been opposing exposing children to drag shows and the general avenue of drag shows before the 18. Kitty lists nudity, sex, and drugs as being at these events and saying how extremely irresponsible it is for parents to explore drag shows with their children and wonders why anyone would want to bring a child to these events. Kitty admonished that if the parents feel the need to expose them to sexually explicit content, once they turn 18 would be the time.
Ms. Miller, I'm sorry, the 3 minutes is up. Thank you. Dr. Philip Dirksen, you're up next. And again, folks, if there's anybody that came in recently, there are yellow or white forms floating about.
Counsel.
Sir, if you can just give me 1 second, I'm so sorry. That's okay. I just wanted to let everyone know that there are yellow or white forms floating around. If you want to address the council, you need to fill out a form because I won't take any hands at the end of this. Okay? Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Sorry to interrupt.
Mr. Mayor, council, thank you for your service to Cottonwood and to our community. I'm Dr. Phil Dirksen. I'm a retired missionary surgeon, 33 years in Africa, the DR Congo. Presently, I'm a Clarkdale resident. I speak to the April 8th, this R-rated event in the Old Town Community Clubhouse. It does not promote, it does not protect the moral health of our children or our community. Several problems. One, there's lack of intellectual honesty in the messaging of this event. Miss Nature, Christopher Hall states, the goal is to reach and educate rural areas. All ages welcome, as long as those under 18 are accompanied by a parent. Open bar. An R-rated event with open bar is not a serious educational situation. Problem 2, R-rated private events should not be held in public government-owned buildings using community resources and tax dollars. Christopher Hall states, this is the first time they have rented a government-owned building during their Pride tour through the rural communities of Arizona. Can you believe it? We're the first. To me, that's a sad precedent. Problem 3, the City Council permitting R-rated entertainment comes close to code violation. Offenses against decency, 9.16.030, public display of explicit sexual material. Public display is defined as any place where minors are invited as part of the general public. Explicit sexual material is permitted if it possesses serious educational value. R-rated entertainment with alcohol does not meet the bar of serious value. Strong leaders are humble leaders. They say, we made a mistake. We will fix it so this will never happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dirksen. Mr. Nacito, you're up next, and you'll be followed by Frank Navarez, Pastor Navarez.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I have a long list of things I was going to read, but a lot of it's been said. What saddens me is that oftentimes I look up here and I see expressionless faces. And I hope your hearts are quivering right now, because you're going to be held responsible for this. We're going to be held responsible for this because we're part of the community. And that's why we're standing up here requesting respectfully to have you somehow change this. Some of the limitations that could be placed on it, people have already mentioned. I suggest you have Yavapai County Children's Protective Services at the door, checking that those guardians are, in fact, the guardians of children. Because if I, a 69-year-old man, walk in with a 12-year-old blonde, blue-eyed girl, I'm guessing they're gonna let me in, because I don't have any birth certificate. How will they check to see who the guardians are? Forgive me. I get angry. I also suggest that you have some undercover law enforcement inside the building and review what's happening there. I can't go in, I won't go in, but I think the authorities need to be there to verify, in fact, nothing, it's a fine situation. I want to read this. It's a quote from the beginning of one of the shows that they did. I hope it doesn't offend anybody. It's not foul language. In Roanoke, Texas, a 6'4" bearded man in spiked high heels, a wig, lipstick, and barely fitting into a size 4 bathing suit of sorts, started the event filled with children and people, raising a glass and saying, "This is how we start our events. Kids, close your ears. Here's to you, here's to me, here's to lick us where we pee." If that's a child-friendly event, I'm crazy. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." My request to you tonight is get wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nacito. Pastor Navarez.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for, I guess, a long night at this point. Basically, my concerns, a lot of people have already spoken of, and they did an incredible job, quite frankly. I am in opposition to this, but if I may come from a personal view, as well as then say something to the City Council, as well as the LGBTQ plus community. The personal issue for me is very simple. I had a son, well, I have a son, I should say, who was deep into this LGBTQ community for many, many years. And him and I have been speaking about what is happening here. And I know what's been said. It's a safe environment. I think someone said that those that come with parents, they grow up to have a healthy lifestyle. My son, who attended these type of events, he said, "Dad, that's quite the opposite." And he then proceeded to explain to me in detail what did transpire. And I'm telling you, it's not safe. It's not safe for children. And someone said earlier that for us, when they started mentioning children, it did cross a line for mothers. Well, it also did for fathers. Set aside me being a pastor, it did for fathers as well. And I just would encourage you to please really rethink about this. I know it might set you up for a lawsuit if you say no to them, but what is more better for the community? A legacy that we believe in family? Or is it, what, we can just let anything go because of? I think we need to really rethink this, number one. Number two, when we as a church, several years ago, we wanted to have a picnic at the riverfront, we had to jump through hoops. And when they said yes to us, they put a lot of restrictions on us. And I would like to know that this council is willing to put restrictions. If you allow this to go or continue, put restrictions. And I think some have mentioned some great restrictions, 21 and over, a guardian, a cop, whatever. I think we have to, again, protect the community. So if we could have restrictions, I think it'd be fair now as it was back then. And then to the LGBT plus community, I invite a conversation. I extend an invitation for them and myself and whomever else to sit down, because I think there's a lot of miscommunication taking place. I know someone said that they, feel the hate in here. We don't hate them. We may hate their behavior, but we don't hate them. And I'm just so blessed that I have a Father in heaven who sent his Son to die for me. And if he died for me, he died for them as well. So we have an incredible opportunity here for us to go and say whatever they need to hear, that we do love them. We just don't like their behavior. With that, thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. All right. Thanks to all of you for your good behavior. I appreciate it very much. Like I said earlier, we cannot discuss this topic as it's not on the agenda, but appreciate you all coming in and sharing your thoughts with council. And I would motion to pay the claims and adjustments.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.